the purpose of this thing is the training is to try to help agents, especially our agents, to become more familiar with the result demonstration and applied research process. We've broke it up into two different tiers, and we've also kind of broke up the presentation to where try to make this kind of a complex topic, break it down in more manageable parts to where everybody can maybe benefit and leave these meetings with more confidence and ability to manage a effective result demonstration or applied research program in your counties. This morning, what we want to try to accomplish is hopefully we hope that you'll understand when you walk away from here the value of trials, the value of doing result demonstration trials or applied research trials. Also, we hope that you understand the difference between a result demonstration and an applied research project. So with that, we have a long history in this state of having effective result demonstrations and applied research, and that goes back to some early times in extension history that all originated here most of it originated here in Texas. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jeff Ripley. Dr. Ripley is the Associate Director for County Operations, and he's going to talk to you, provide you a little bit of information about kind of our legacy and what we're here today to build upon. Dr. Ripley?
Great. Thanks, Darrell. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the training today. And first, let me say how much I appreciate the group that's putting this on. I look at the set of speakers that you're going to have today, and then again on May the 11th, and just an outstanding group of individuals that have done a lot of this kind of work down through the years. I was going to start and say this is a new concept, something that we've never tried before, but Lord knows that's not the truth. This truly is, when we think back to how Extension was founded and what Extension is founded on, it truly is taking information that is research-based, that comes from the university, from the experiment station, putting it into a package that is understandable, that can be seen, that can be experienced by producers and clientele so that they can use it in their operations to improve their status and improve their productivity. And that's what result demonstrations are all about. It's truly giving them an opportunity to take really complex research-based information and see it in a way that it's easy to understand, that they can take it and adapt it and put it to use in their operations. And, we've been doing that since the early 1900s, really before Extension was founded. 1914 was the official founding of Extension. That's when the legislation was passed. But we've been doing extension work since the early 1900s, starting in Kaufman County, and I know that Dr. Parker is going to talk more about that in just a few minutes, so I'm going to leave that. But what I see as the true value of result demonstrations, and here's what I would tell you, 32 years ago almost, June the 1st, 1989, my first day on the job in Extension, my trainer agent at that time, Gus Brisson, called my house on Sunday evening before I started to work on Monday and said, when you come to work tomorrow, you need to have work clothes on. We're going to go put in some brush control trials. I didn't have a clue what he was talking about or what we were going to do, but I went in with work boots on, and that was my first day on the job, was putting in result demonstration work in Guadalupe County in Kingsbury with some brush control. Also, being the young first day assistant agent, I think I had $2 in my pocket in my billfold. I didn't know we were going to be out all day, and we were, and we went to eat lunch. And I think he finally figured out that I didn't have any money and bought me a hamburger. So it's a long story to talk about the history with result demonstrations for me, but that is truly how I learned, was working side by side with other agents and how to do that. And that's what you're going to get out of this. Without question, you're going to learn from some of the very best agents that we have that have been implementing and using result demonstrations as their primary teaching tool for their careers. Some of the other
This
things,
Arlene.
some of the other things that I get that I've seen as true benefits of using result demonstrations is, you know, I probably built some of the best relationships down through the years with producers, with people in my county from working with them and doing result demonstrations on their property. You know, and just them seeing the value that we bring, the opportunity just to get out there with them and have time with them as they're, you know, involved in their operation. So some really, really good relationships that still to this day have. I continue to communicate with a lot of those producers that I did result demonstrations with. So, you know, stakeholder relationships, improving your standing in the ag community in your county, and the respect that producers have for you, that's going to come from a solid result demonstration program without a doubt. I think that's one of the real values. You know, you learn some things, and that's where a lot of the phone calls that we get and a lot of the questions that we get from landowners and producers lead us to ideas for what we need to do in result demonstrations, and it allows us to learn firsthand what we can recommend and some of the things that we can talk to producers and landowners and farmers and ranchers about in terms of what we know and the information that we can share with them. And when we can share from experience and maybe point them to a place where they can go and see it, then it becomes something that's very useful and can immediately be seen and adopted. So lots of things can be learned from that. You know, the thing that separates us from the many other plots of things that you'll see, you know, particularly in row crop communities scattered around the county, is we're not selling them anything. Our information is unbiased. What we have to offer producers is a fair, equitable comparison of alternatives without any bias, without anything to sell. And that's the true value of what we bring. Lots of companies will put in trials, will put in, you know, research plots across the community, but they always have an angle of wanting to sell something. That doesn't mean they're not valuable. Much of what they do is very valuable and the information is really good, but ours is 100% unbiased. And that's what separates us and what, to me, makes our result demonstration work extremely valuable in terms of what producers can use. So no question that's a benefit. The professional development that you will get in working with specialists, with working with primarily extension specialists, but some industry folks as well, is extremely valuable to you as a county extension agent. You know, I think about the days that I spent putting out trials with people like Billy Warwick and people like Paul Bauman and you know, some of the specialists that we've worked with down through the years. That's where I learned, you know, the things that helped me be valuable, hopefully valuable as a resource to producers, was the time I spent in pastures, on fence rows, and in row crop fields with those specialists, putting in result demonstrations, asking questions, listening, and just learning from them as we went through that process was I think helped me as a professional tremendously and helped me be more valuable to the producers. You know, the relationship that you're going to develop with specialists is going to serve you well as you go through your career. Many of you are further along in your career and have already got those relationships, but those of you that are fairly young in your career, fairly new to extension, that is going to be as valuable to you as anything that you get, is a relationship that you'll build with specialists, spending time with them, putting in, evaluating, reporting, doing tours and educational programs in the field that utilize result demonstrations as the primary teaching tool. So that's just one of many things that I think will be valuable to you as an agent and being a part of putting in result demonstrations. So I don't want to take away from the time that you're going to get with some true professionals that have done this, made long careers out of putting this together. I think you've got an outstanding group of speakers and an outstanding agenda, and certainly I can see that, you know, that what this is going to do is move our agency forward in the work that we do in result demonstrations in the field with the the respect that we'll have with producers, the work that we'll continue to do with producers in the future is going to be enhanced because of this training. So again, I really appreciate Dr. Dromgoole for moderating and building this, and the team that they put together that have helped put this training together. I know they've spent a lot of time and preparation putting this together. So without question, it's going to be an outstanding training. I would leave you with, you know, a story from my time in a county with, I was putting in a result demonstration, and I mentioned relationships. And this was a rancher that I really, really respected and spent a lot of time with. And we were putting in, actually, we're putting in a trial for greenbrier control on fence row. So we were out on his ranch and we'd done some work, and Bauman had been working with me some on this as well. So we were putting in this trial for greenbrier control. We were heading to the back of the ranch, and I was riding with him in the passenger seat. And, you know, as you would expect, we pull up. So who gets the gate? Well, you know, the Dumb County agent in the passenger seat. So I get out to go get the gate. Then I walk up to the gate post and reach down to get the chain and unhook it. And I glance down there, and there's a rattlesnake, a big one, coiled up right by that corner post. So I just eased back to the pickup, and I told Mr. Overton, I said, "Have you got a shotgun?" He said, "What do you got?" I said, "There's a snake right by that fence post." He goes, "Oh, no. We don't shoot rattlesnakes on this ranch." I said, "What? You don't shoot rattlesnakes?" He goes, "No." He said, "We hope they'll either bite an oil man or a hunter. So we leave rattlesnakes alone on this ranch." So you do learn a lot of things putting in result demonstrations. And that's a story from 25 years ago that I certainly will never forget. But lots of fun times and lots of great opportunities working with those producers and putting in trials and plots. So I'm going to turn it back to Darrell or to Dr. Parker and let them take it from here. Thanks again for your time and being a part of this training.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ripley. Really do appreciate that. We're going to go move on in the program, and as Dr. Ripley alluded to, the kind of the person that started all of this back in the early 1900s was Dr. Seaman Knapp. And I'm getting old enough that I've had a couple of people ask me if he was my trainer agent, and I always tell them no, he wasn't, but that I do know who his assistant agent was, and that was Dr. Roy Parker. But Parker is a unique individual. He's been a career building good extension programs, conducting good programs. And if you don't know Dr. Parker, you've never enjoyed the enthusiasm, the passion he has for the job he does. And I consider myself lucky to have had the opportunity to work with Dr. Parker for a number of years. And not only that, just call him my friend, because he's a good man, a good person to be around. He's now got the title of Extension Entomologist Emeritus. And but he hadn't give up the work. He still does volunteer work for the agency and still doing a lot of work for us. And he's today volunteering to talk about something he has a passion about. We all know that this all started in the early 1900s. There's been a lot of things changed since the 1900s. And how do these result demonstrations apply research fit within the context today? And so, Dr. Parker, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your thoughts related to really what's needed today and in contrast to what happened in the early 1900s.
Okay, this is the first time I've ever shared screen, but I wanted to make a few comments ahead of time. Of course, Seaman Knapp, the thing that impressed me was how he addressed the work in Kaufman County. And what he said was, what a man hears about, he'll doubt. What he sees, he may possibly doubt, but what he does himself, he cannot doubt. Of course, that was the start of extension. And as mentioned earlier, really I think the first county agent was in Smith County, Tyler. I'm going to try to share a screen to start my presentation here. So the title that I've given this presentation is Moving Extension Beyond the Methods of Knapp Porter. Now, I mentioned that I think a lot of what they did in those years. And I even made a trip up to the 100th anniversary. I think it was in 2003. And it was a unique experience for me to go to the place where extension had its beginning. Now I think I'm ready to roll now, since I've learned all of this for the first time. Their work had some limits. And one of the main ones is it was not designed to evaluate or compare practices head on. Another thing that's different now, our scientific rigor is much more at a higher level today. And all you have to do to see that is go back and look at some of the journal articles of the time. They did not answer highly technical questions. Now our clientele is much better informed, and they have quick access to all kinds of resources, as you probably realize. And they did not address a wide array of production inputs. Moving from that, what's needed today? There's a great need for comparison evaluations, and that I think that's a key right there. The term comparison evaluations. Applied research is not being conducted as much as it used to be by university or federal people. So that kind of, I think some of that falls on our shoulders. There are more inputs available today that need evaluation. Claims by commercial companies need confirmation and expansion. We need to confirm research that's already been done in randomized replicated demonstrations under local conditions. And I think that's a critical part of this as well. Now, I kind of view demonstrations and applied research that we do, the type of things we do, as kind of an amalgamation of the two ideas. And yes, there are critical differences that will be pointed out by other speakers later on, but I think you'll see how this fits in a little bit later. Our demonstrations, we need to determine what fits the local area, and can we identify additional uses of some of these practices and procedures. And it's critical that we carry out our trials with randomization and replication, especially if we are comparing things. That way we can measure what experimental error is. Now, other people will talk about this term later, either in tier 1 or tier 2 presentations, or probably in both. What do we need to do now these days? We need to determine cost-effective practices. We need to set up trials that are designed that we can analyze statistically and use that experimental error term I mentioned a while ago. We need continued studies of practices under various weather conditions, soil, location, that kind of thing. I want to show an example next of what I'm talking about. In Wharton County, 2011, on the Waters Farm, we conducted a test on corn for chinch bug control. 2 different companies' products. Poncho from one company, Cruiser from another company. We looked at these seed treatments. They were seed treatments, fairly new to the market at the time. 3 different rates. We ran statistical analysis, and over here, there are no significant differences between any of those products at any of those rates. They were all but one was significantly better than the untreated. And the one that was not significant, it was almost statistically different. But over here, these are the dollar returns on a per acre basis. Again, this fairly dry year, you can see with less than 100 bushel per acre corn. I did not run statistics on the dollars. I could have, but you can see the trends here. And a farmer will look at this and say, if there's no significant difference in yield, I can probably choose any of these treatments. But I think I could save some money by purchasing a low rate, for example. So this gives confidence to a grower, and actually gives confidence to me as a specialist and a county agent. So why applied research? And I mentioned this term already. It's a confidence builder. These kind of tests enhance acceptance by the clients, by agents, and by the specialists. And it kind of goes back to what Seaman Knapp had to say. What a person does for himself, he cannot doubt. I doubted a lot of things until I saw it with my own eyes. And it, as mentioned earlier, we provide unbiased scientific information by doing it this way. Now, another thing that I found kind of unique, if you see a similar response in the replicates, in other words, you're walking across a bunch of plots and you can see the same response from the same treatment each time, not only one time, but maybe 3 or 4 different times, boy, that adds confidence to what you're doing. So I mentioned, again, I can't mention this enough about it allows agents and specialists to develop technical competence and credibility with clientele. Look at this one. If we're making comparisons without proper design, and what I mean by proper design, that they're randomized and replicated, the results are essentially useless or at best of little value. I almost left off or at best of little value and let this statement stand alone. Again, we're talking about comparisons of head-to-head comparisons of 2 practices of some kind. I'm going to demonstrate this now with, and you'll see it's more of a demonstration than it was any type of, it was not applied research as a matter of fact, but I'll show you in a minute how we did it. And I'm going to set up a simulated test with the data. A farmer, I think he had a 16-row planter, and he harvested the 8 center rows all the way across the field and measured the yield from all of those 8-row plots across his entire field. And he viewed this field as a fairly uniform field. Notice that the range in yield was from 79 bushels per acre to 96 bushels per acre. Now, if you split that field in half and average this side, you came up with 92 bushels, the average the other side came up with 84 bushels per acre. Folks, I've had growers plant 2 different hybrids. Now remember, this is the same hybrid all the way across. I had growers to plant 2 hybrids, one on one half the field, other on the other half the field. And if this one made 8 bushels more like shown here, then they'd say, I'll plant this one the following year. Well, this will not give you good information. So let me tell you what we're going to do now. We're going to take these yields and we're going to make out like we've got a randomized complete block test with 5 different treatments. And here they are. And these, of course, these are pretend treatments. They're not real treatments. It's on that data from that single hybrid, treatments A through E. And here's a block, the randomized complete block. In other words, randomized in each block. And there's 4 blocks here, as you see. And so we can determine experimental error with this type of information. So let's see what the results would be in that simulated test. There are no significant differences. Well, there shouldn't have been. It was the same hybrid. So, you know, again, this would tell a grower right off that, hey, I can't just plant 1 strip or half the field compared to the other half of the field and determine the best route to take the following year. Now, this is going to be talked about earlier, but since I mentioned randomized complete block, I want to show you how I did a lot of my tests with the county agents down in our district. Let's say you had an 8-row planter and it was on bedded land. And this put us in the center, put a flag, red flag on each end, and each of the plots, the same treatment. All the farmer had to do is go, if it was a planting time test, go and plant those 3. I like to do 4 reps because you could stay on the same end of the field. Otherwise, you had to meet him on the other end. And let's say set up treatment 4 and he'd go back and plant the yellow flag. So it's not difficult to get a randomized complete block test done this way. Now, I'm going to show some examples of some of the work that was done in our district on pasture, sorghum, and cotton to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about to this point. This was done with Philip Shackelford in Austin County. I forget what year it was. It was near the time that this product, Prevathon, came to the market. This is a number of grasshoppers for 5 weeks, 56 days after treatment. We were amazed. Now, you see, this gave us information that was not known by the company. And of course, it was not known by us either. But this Prevathon, I'm going to just say is $14 an acre. The cost of the chemical alone, not counting the application cost. Baythroid, on the other hand, was about $7 per acre, so about double the cost. So looking here, 56 days after treatment, we still got outstanding control with both rates. So that first it tells us, hey, we can get by spending less money by using the lower rate instead of the 14-ounce rate. The other thing is, we're at the threshold that you're getting economic loss is somewhere between 8 and 10 grasshoppers, I think, per 5 sweeps of the sweeping. Incidentally, Philip Shackelford did all this sweeping for this this test that we did. Look what a confidence builder. In all cases, really, a grower can make a decision, well, I'll just spend $7 an acre and I can get pretty decent control. And the person said, well, you know, if you treat twice, you've only spent 14, which would each equal the cost up here. But that doesn't count the application cost. And if you had hired it done, it really kicked the cost up if you were doing 2 treatments. So this is a confidence builder. Here's another confidence builder that happened. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I'll tell you that these Gacho and the Cruiser, incidentally, DeWitt County with Anthony and Tardis, Gacho and Cruiser compared. They had been on the market very short period of time. This was a bad yellow sugarcane aphid year. In fact, it was devastation on a lot of acres. And some of the growers who had used the other product the year before said, I got to go back and use that product I used before. You know, they'd switch from Gacho to Counter or Cruiser to Gacho. Well, it was a different year. A lot of seed companies and other people took people to these plots to look at. Seemingly now, you know, if you hear about it, you'll doubt it. But if you see it, you may possibly doubt it. Again, if you did it yourself, you cannot doubt it. But he took them there, and the other thing about this, you could walk across the plots. Here was the old standby, the Counter. Here's the untreated, and of course these are the yields and the dollar returns. And those dollar returns are based on the cost of the seed treatment, the cost of harvesting and hauling, the extra yield you made. That's a cost a grower would not realize. So it's taken out, and as not only the cost of chemical, but those two. And again, I think I mentioned this, that similar response by treatments was observed from plot to plot. In other words, you can walk across there and see the check every time. You could kind of see the Counter. It wasn't quite as good as these other two, and so it was a real good teaching moment for a lot of people. This last one, I think, was the biggest confidence booster I ever had in my career, because we did not see this for 7 years. We were looking at several different treatments. We were looking at a higher rate of the Timic, but I want to show now just what really made the money for us. We could, in an individual test, we did not see significant differences. And in fact, that high rate actually hurt the plant. We had lower yields in a lot of cases. We didn't figure out why. We didn't know it was hurting the plant that bad. But after 7 years and 22 tests in Nueces, Refugio, San Patricio, Jim Wells, Calhoun counties, all those counties, I put the data together. And this was a randomized complete block with 3 or 4 replications, depending upon the year and the location. we have got significant differences. So we got a return of $20.31. Now, in this case, cost of chemical, cost of application, cost of harvesting, hauling, ginning, and gin fees, that's all taken out as part of the cost. Well, here's the interesting part of this. That $20.31, that was a 58 pound yield increase over the untreated. I looked at Bart Dries was my counterpart on the upper Gulf Coast at that time. And Bart had similar tests. And I went and looked at his data, and he even showed a higher return because he's got more thrips in the upper Gulf Coast. Well, my goodness, I called him, and Bart said, no, we didn't see much from it. I said, Bart, put your data together. It's like Seaman Knapp said, he heard it from me, but he didn't really believe it until he put all his data together. And so I think our clients are the same way. I'm the same way. I told a chemical company one time after they presented their information, and they kind of asked us to go out and tell people how good it was. I said, I don't do that with anybody until I've seen it with my own eyes in our country down there on the Gulf Coast. Okay, who else would do this type of work? No one. Extension, fill the void, and it is a great void to fill. I wish I had asked you earlier to be thinking about questions to ask, but I'll try to answer any that you might have or clear up anything I may have said. Again, this is the first time I've ever done share screen type thing.
Anybody have any questions?
They better have, or I'll feel bad.
I've got one, Roy. How, when you do these plots, tell a little bit about why, if seed companies are already doing them, why should we do them? I think that's a question a lot of people have sometimes.
Well, I know some of their tests are not randomized and replicated, and they kind of choose the hybrids and things that go into those tests. Plus, they know we're unbiased. The person really would not know for sure if most of the companies show good information, and I have great respect for a bunch of especially the researchers I worked with over the years. And it's they know who's conducted the test. They see it, how it's done. Of course, we're right there with them. And my greatest joy was working with county agents, all of us working together. And Darrell, I want to tell one on you. We hand harvested a cotton plot one time on the hottest day of the year, I think, and Dromgoole was out there harvesting next to me, and we were counting the bowls we were harvesting in those plots, hand harvest, and it was hot. And the only thing I could hear from Darrell every now and then was, it was that hot. So,
Yeah, it was warm that day. Next, to share some thoughts with you about really the value of result demonstration is Josh Blannick. Josh is a County Extension Agent Ag and Natural Resource Agent in Tom Green County up in San Angelo. Josh has a great history of doing quality work and doing quality result demonstration and applied research work. So, Josh, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Dr. Dromgoole. That was a nice introduction, and thank y'all for inviting me. And when I got the agenda and saw all the speakers on there, all the agents and specialists, I'm really in with a great group of folks, and y'all are really going to be privileged today to hear from them. When Robert Pritz, my RPO, called and asked if I'd do this and gave me the topic, he said, would you talk 20 minutes on the value of conducting result demonstration and applied research trials? And I told him, yeah, I'd be happy to. That sounds easy. We all know the value of it. And so I was happy to do that. But last week when I started putting my outline together and making my notes, it wasn't so easy. When you hear the word value, if you're like me, man, I don't have any money. I'm a county agent. I got 2 teenage girls, got a bad habit called showing sheep. So So I don't have any money in my pocket. And so when I see value, I always think of dollar signs. And so hopefully this presentation is not going to have any dollar signs in it. And but hopefully I can kind of relate to you what the value of this work that we do in applied research and result demonstrations is to us as an agency, and what it means to us, to our clients. I have some slides. I don't think I'm going to show them because they're just kind of bullet points. So I think I may just talk to y'all about it, and you got the slides in the email you had this morning. But to move on to this topic, what's the value of conducting result demonstrations in applied research? So, like I said, I started putting my notes together, and I was like, I don't know what the value is. You can't measure the value. And so what I wrote down was this work is just invaluable to us as an agency. It's priceless work that we cannot put a dollar sign on. I wish we could. If we could put a dollar sign on the work that we've done since Seaman Knapp started all the way to today, it would be easy to go to Austin and say, look, this is what our budget is. This is your return on investment. This is a no-brainer to fund this and increase our funding, but it's just hard. To me, reflecting back on this type of work, I'm always the champion for 4-H and youth development, and I always will be. I think that's the foundation and backbone of extension. But no second to it. I mean, I think it's equally as important is these result demonstrations and applied research. You heard Dr. Ripley talk earlier of how extension started and the work we've done and the difference we've made in the lives of people and their livelihoods for over 100 years. And it's all because of this work. So if there's two things that we stand on in cooperative extension, especially in Texas, one of them is our applied research that we do. And then when we take it to the client in a form of a result demonstration, it's just, there's no dollar sign you can put to it. I mean, when you talk about Seaman Knapp, when he started work with boll weevil, you talk about brush control work that was started in the 90s. And even today in the 2000s, the earth kind work that's been done out there. I mean, that's just to name a few, stuff that has made a considerable difference in the environment and the quality of people's livelihoods and the quality of their life. I remember as a kid growing up in West Texas, I mean, before I even dreamed of being a county agent in the 90s, the big deal, and every one of y'all has brush in your county, so you can relate to this, but and you get questions, but the big deal in the 90s was the encroachment of, invasive species, brush, mesquite and juniper and prickly pear and stuff like that. And so, I wasn't around, but I'm sure producers and clients came to Extension and said, hey, we got a problem with this. We got these invasive species coming in. They're taking our grass, they're taking our water. What can we do about it? And so at that time, Texas Agricultural Extension Service went to work, and our range specialists went to work and put out those applied research trials and determined, everybody knows the old original remedy and diesel or remedy and reclaim and doing the foliar treatments, or the old Tordon on prickly pear. And they came up with these solutions, and then, and working with agents, and then the agents went out into their county and put out these demonstrations to show everybody that, hey, this works and this is what we do. And I can remember being a kid driving around, go and look for sheep or whatever, and you'd see these big billboards in these pastures, extension, result demonstration work here, brush busters. Everybody knows what brush busters was. So the point of this story is, I mean, brush busters was huge to the state of Texas. And that's, something that Extension came up with. We did the research, we found the products, and then the agents went out there, put in those demonstrations, demonstrated it, shows that it works, shows that you can get high control at X amount of dollars, and just really highlighted what we do. That's just one example. I know there's a lot. And then, Dr. Parker hit on a lot of really good things a while ago, and I enjoyed listening to him. And there's just such a great cycle of learning that comes with this work. I mean, and you'll hear more about it later, but it starts from you all hear the grassroots level or from the clients. Your clients come to you or your committees come to you and say, hey, we have a problem with this. What can be done about it? So you as an agent, you talk to your subject matter specialist, you develop a plan, you do the applied research, you figure out what works, or like Dr. Parker said, what doesn't work. And then you take that and turn it into a demonstration. You show your clients, they learn, and then that produces the next question. Well, if this worked well or this didn't, what about the next step? And it just continues and continues. And so, excuse me. So where I'm going with that is, there's no dollar sign that we can put on this, unfortunately. If there was, it'd be huge. And just keep in mind, on any of this, so whether you're a young agent or you've been in 28 years, 29 years, nothing is too big or too small. Don't take for granted that your clients know something. I mean, to this day, we're still doing brush control demonstrations. We're still teaching people. I mean, I get calls, people with Sendero on, do I mix that with diesel? No, you don't. And so there's stuff out there, there's opportunities for us as agents to get out there and do these demonstrations, and provide that education to our clients. That means a lot. Excuse me, my voice. It's pretty dry out here in West Texas. We need a rain to kind of wash the stuff out of the air. But there's a lot of value in what is gained as far as the knowledge shared and gained in these result demonstrations. We'll talk about you as an agent first and what you can get from it. And from I kind of broke it in two pieces, the applied research side of it. When you're involved in these things, you're involved in the outcomes, like Dr. Parker said. You have a chance to become the expert. He kind of stole he didn't steal it, but he used one of the quotes I was going to use from Seaman Knapp. And so can't use that, but one that I think about a lot, I don't know who came up with it. I think Benjamin Franklin or somebody, but I think of Dr. Darrell Rollins all the time when I hear this. But you tell me and I forget, you teach me and I remember, but you involve me and I learn. And so if you're out there and you're working with those specialists and those company representatives and putting in that applied research, there's no better way to learn. There's no better professional development. You can't learn that stuff in college. You can't learn it sitting on a Zoom meeting and being told. But if you're out in the fields and you're out in the trenches, so to speak, and doing it, there's a wealth of knowledge that's going to come from that opportunity. And we're expected to be the expert, and the only way to learn is to get your hands dirty and do it. And then when you talk about it in a result demonstration type example, you're able to observe that practice in a real world setting. Like Dr. Parker said, you putting out comparison evaluations, a variety trial. You work with your specialist, they put in those UVT trials. They have lots of varieties out there that are replicated, and then what varieties work well in your area. And so you pick 8, 10, 12, and you put a strip trial in. Well, then you get to see them in a real world scenario. You get to learn, and in return, again, you're getting that knowledge that you can relay to your clientele in a actual setting that they understand, not in a research setting that goes over a lot of people's heads. So, and then as we move on and talk about the knowledge that you share and gain with your clients, that's so important to us as an organization. Applied research. I mean, Dr. Parker hit it on the nail on the head. I mean, we're there and we're able to provide our clients with that, timely, very important, unbiased evidence about new techniques, products, varieties that is going to, like I said, help their livelihood. I mean, a lot of stuff we do is for folks that are making a living off this or increasing their quality of life. And so those applied research projects that we do, mean a lot to those folks. And then when you talk about it from the result demonstration side of it, for our clients, again, it goes back to that comparison evaluation Dr. Parker talked about. I think that's so important. It breaks it down from the research end of it that's hard to understand and a lot of people doubt, to the real world setting, to where those technologies are easy to understand. Again, if you want to use a variety demonstration, for example, you got 10 wheat varieties out there. You go out there with a 30-foot air seeder, put them in, you leave a gap in between, and then you put signs up, and your clients can go out there and drive through it, walk through it, and they can visually see it in their situation, as opposed to, hundreds or several different varieties out there in small plot replicated trial. And so you take it and you break it down as far as that goes. As we move on, we talk about relationships, and Dr. Ripley hit on this, and after lunch, you're going to hear from 4 individuals that I highly respect, and I can't wait to listen to them, and they're going to go in more details, but from Travis and Jason and Shane McClellan and Scott Strawn, they're going to go in more details. I didn't realize I was copycatting them until I kind of got looking at the agenda after I made my slides, but you can't put a value on relationships, like Dr. Ripley said earlier. First and foremost is with your program area committees. That's where your ideas come from. You can't sit in the office and come up with an idea and say, this is what I want to do for result demonstration this year. You got to go out there and do something that's relevant and needed. And so working with your program area committees to determine those needs and what needs done, what they're interested in, what they want to see is paramount to this. They're going to be instrumental in helping you whatever you're going to do, whether it's selecting varieties, products for a spray demonstration or methods, something like that. They're going to tell you, hey, this is what we need. This is what we want more information on. This is the kind of information I'll come to and look at. Securing locations and products, they got contacts. It's hard nowadays to get a lot of, the hardest part of demonstrations is finding a location. I mean, you get on the phone, you just start making phone calls, finding the right spot, and they can help you. My neighbor has a spot, I have a spot, etc., and finding those products. When I started in Williamson County, I started with, a lot of y'all may not know him, some of y'all do, Ronnie Leps. And I was real fortunate to get to work with him, and that guy was great with committees and cooperators. I learned a lot from him looking back. And, developing those relationships was a great part of result demonstrations. And then you talk about industry professionals. You heard Dr. Parker ask and Dr. Dromgoole ask about that, but industry is so important to us, and we got to have those relationships, good relationships with them. Because number one, stuff's not cheap anymore. And if you got to have to secure, products and or equipment to use, I don't know about you, but I don't have a big result demonstration line item on my budget. And so when we're putting in demonstrations, I'm making phone calls to those industry guys and saying, hey, this is what we're looking at doing. Can you help me out? And then, and let's not sell ourselves short either. We provide them very valuable information on demonstrations and results on their products. We're a salesman for them. I mean, we're going out there and we're demonstrating their products. They can't do it. They don't have the time to put those demonstrations in. And when they do, they only put their varieties in, they put a competitor in. Hey, if it don't turn out, that demonstration just gets lost. Let's just be honest. Hopefully no industry people are on here, but they know they've got to have extension out there providing that unbiased information. And, they know their clients look at that stuff. And so having that relationship and like I say, they're helping us, but we're doing a big service for them. And then sponsorships, a lot of times demonstrations turn into field days, man. And you got to have somebody to cover that cost recovery or cover the hamburgers and the Cokes. And if you put in a demonstration and it turns out well, and you want to have a field tour or a turn row meeting or whatever, it's easy to pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, you got product in here, can you put in 250 or whatever amount for a field day? And man, I've never had anybody tell me no. They're excited to get their product showcased. And then the mentorship part of it. Over the years, I've had a lot of good mentors from the industry. Scott Fuchs with that, Phytogen Cottonseed, David Hollyback with weeds. I mean, Charlie Hart, over the years, I mean, guys that you form a friendship with, and you can pick up the phone and say, hey, what's going on? I don't know what's going on here. Can you help me explain the problem? And they're just like specialists. They can help you and they want to help you because you have that relationship. And then cooperators and specialists, there's like Dr. Ripley said, I mean, I'm just repeating, they kind of stole my talk, and which is great, but hearing it from an agent, I think will help. But getting to work one-on-one again with those guys in the trenches, forms of friendship, mentorship. I mean, I got, cooperators that we put in plots with, and you're out there sweating with them or freezing with them and putting in a long day's work. I mean, you form those relationships, and it's more than just extension. I mean, I got several examples of, we finish up doing some ratings or harvesting the plot or whatever, and it's hot and it's in the summer, and we get everything weighed and finished, and then we go back to the barn and drink some tea under the shade or something else. And we talk, and we talk about extension. We talk about trials. We talk about their business. I mean, passing it down to their kids or how their wife's doing, or we talk about football or whatever. And it's those friendships, and, they call you on the phone just to chit chat, or they see you on the highway, they call, see what's up, or they check on the 4-H'ers, how the major show season went, stuff like that. So, that's, again, going back to the value. You can't put a price on that. And when you need help, those guys are there. And of course, those guys have been doing it for a living. They got a lot of knowledge there. They can help you a lot. And then we'll finish it up with, our clientele. I don't know that any one of those bullet points are any more important than the other, but our clientele are very important, because if we're not meeting our clients' needs, we're going to be out of a job. And so, we are seen, and we got to continue to be seen, as a source for non-biased information. People like Dr. Parker and Ronnie Leps and a whole bunch that came before us that set up and put in the work and provided the respect that we have in extension. We got to continue it, and we've got to provide that need for our clientele. And then, again, you've heard it before and you're going to hear it again. You've got to be your local expert. You've got to be the one that people think about when they need help. I'm not going to, not to point fingers, but they don't need to be calling Tractor Supply. They don't need to be calling the local feed store with some yahoo working the front desk getting information. They need to be calling extension. And so you need to be the expert. You need to be out there learning. And so when you get those phone calls, you can answer that question. Or we don't always know the answer, but they have the faith in you that if you don't know it, you can find it out. And there's no better way than getting out there. Again, I keep using this, but getting in the trenches, getting your hands dirty, boots on the ground, and learning this stuff. And it was hard as a young agent to maybe see the value, but the longer I've been in, the more looking back, I realize how important this is to our clients and then to me professionally. So Dr. Dromgoole, that's about all I have. I'm a little short today, but you'll have my slides in the packet. I didn't show them because, like I said, it was a lot of repeat of what was said before, but I can't stress how important all this is. So.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Josh. Appreciate your sharing some information with this group today. I think we're time for a break. Before we kick off the break, y'all have heard the Seaman Knapp 2 or 3 times today, and Knapp Porter, and just share something with you. I taught a class on campus here. It was history and philosophy of extension. And part of that class is the students have to do a term paper about an individual that shaped extension, that helped shape the extension that we have today. One of the topics was the Knapp Porter farm, either a person or an event that changed the nation. I had a young girl pick that as a topic, and she did a little Google search and done some background, and she ran down Mr. Knapp's grandson, who still operates the farm up in Kaufman County, and was able to get some quotes from him and some things from him that was, you couldn't ask for anything any better. And she was able to actually bring him into class via this technology Zoom, and to help her with her presentation. And so, you don't think about those things, but it kind of something pretty neat to get to think about. We're going to go ahead and get started back on our program today. Believe it or not, when we sat down to meet with the steering committee that planned this training and future trainings is related to this topic, one of the biggest topics of discussion and the biggest source of debate was actually what the difference in result demonstration and applied research. And so the committee kind of come up with something to think of and think about in that regard, and thought there was certainly a difference between a result demonstration and applied research. And so we're going to turn it over to Clint Perkins. He is a county extension agent, ag and natural resources, Smith County, to discuss the definition of a result demonstration and give you possibly some examples of a result demonstration that he might think of. Clint?
Larry Pierce gave me the opportunity to do this presentation. I did a lot of reflecting back over the years, and I've been in extension roughly 18 years. And I've worked with a lot of great agents over the years, and we've done a lot of multi-county result demonstration work. And one of the first ones was my mentor agent was Dirk Aaron. And he taught me, the ins and outs of being a county agent and about result demonstration trials. And that's when I was the agent in Milam County. And we did it was more row crop county down there. So we did a lot of result demonstrations in corn, cotton, and grain sorghum and for different variety trials. But as I transferred from Milam County to Wood County, I'm not in a row crop county. So we met with our committees and stuff like that. And then we just continue just building on every year of our result demonstration work. On this next slide is result demonstrations were the foundation of cooperative extension. And as the other speakers in this morning, I was talking about Seaman Knapp and Walter Porter, they began the result demonstrations in 1902 near Terrell, Texas in Kaufman County in a little community called Poultry. And I was born and raised in Kaufman County. And I remember we used the Porter farm a lot, buying our grain for our cattle and everything else. And I was very fortunate to be born and raised in that county and then come to work for Extension. The result demonstrations offered local farmers the opportunity to explore the benefits of scientific farming methods, such as crop rotation, use of legumes, properly spaced plantings, commercial fertilizers, and all this to increase crop production. But what happened is the townspeople met and they asked Dr. Knapp, he was going around doing result demonstrations, different farming demonstrations, using the different techniques. And what they did is the townspeople met and they selected Porter Farm. But they, for our result demonstrations, when we go to a cooperator or a producer or something like that, they always got a little skin in the game because, a lot of times they're providing the stuff, using their crop and everything. So the townspeople raised $1,000 as an insurance against any losses that may occur using the new agronomic practices that Dr. Knapp was recommending. And, the $1,000 was not needed. Mr. Porter, he estimated that he made over $700 more off his farm that year using the new technologies, and boom. And these changes in behaviors and adoption of practices as a result of these demonstrations was instrumental in the passage of the Smith-Lever Act of 1914 that authorized the cooperative extension as a part of the land grant colleges and the USDA. So result demonstrations are the backbone. It's an excellent teaching tool. But what is a result demonstration? It's a method of teaching designed to show by example the practical applications of established results. As you can see right here in the top slide, this is when I was in Wood County. I was there for almost 13 years and we did a lot of result demonstration work there. This here is with the Wood County Master Gardeners, and this is at the Mineola Nature Preserve. And what we see here is this is a rainwater harvesting result demonstration. And if you notice, what do you see first thing when you walk up to that educational kiosk? You see the AgriLife Extension, Agriculture Demonstration and Applied Research Project sign. We branded it. So we got our name out there. This is more of a method demonstration, but if back there on the back wall, we have different things about, you know, how much water's coming off that roof, the size, the square foot of the roof, how much water's going into the catch basin. And with that, we are using gravity to water our beds through drip irrigation. I don't have that in the picture, but, and then just write a little sign, little educational deal at the very front. And it talks about, you know, how much water and we can save just by collecting rainfall. This is an excellent result demonstration tool, a teaching method. And as you can see down here in the bottom, we got Agent, you know, Tommy Phillips there. He's in the blue shirt, and he's leading the discussion on this part of our multi-county result demonstration we did for using different herbicide effectiveness. And that was with Wood, Rains, and Van Zant County. But it can be used as a method of motivating clientele to adopt new practices when they can see the benefits of these practices. And it's one of the most effective educational tools for transferring research-based technologies and practices to our clientele. Just a little story. We have an agribusiness here. I'll go on to the next slide, but we have an agribusiness here in town. And what they do is there's a gentleman, when he would come in, and he would have our result demonstration report that he got at our field day, our field tour, and it was folded up and unfolded so many times it was almost falling apart. And what he would do is he would bring that in, those results that he saw at our result demonstration field tour, and he would open it up and he would point to that product and said, this worked best in those trials. And that's what he would buy. So he was using that. And matter of fact, I got his name and number, and I printed him off a newer report and sent to him. So, but anyhow, on this top picture here, it's also a way of showing clientele the value of improved practices. And what you see at the top slide here on the left is, this is my coworker, Greg Grant. This is our EarthKind environmental result demonstration we have here in town in Tyler. And people see, you know, we branded it. It puts Texas A&M AgriLife Extension out there. And what they do is in the people in the communities and our businesses and everything else, they see the value of what we're doing. And so we had, when I was in Wood County, it was Wood, Rains, and Van Zant, we had Roselle Sprayer and Manufacturing. They put together a test plot sprayer because we were having to go and you know, wash the tank out every time we did a herbicide trial, and we had to flush it and everything. And it was very time consuming, especially when you have 10 different herbicide trials that you've got going out. And so he built us a test plot sprayer. Now that was for Wood, Rains, and Van Zant, but this bottom one you see here is when I transferred to Smith County. I do a lot of work with Henderson County, with Cherokee, and with Anderson County, and that's Spencer Perkins and Aaron Lowe and Truman Lamb and myself. So Darren built us this test plot sprayer and gave it to us, and we can mix up 4 different rates at one time. And then we have a 25-gallon flush tank on top, and we go out and we put those rates out, and we flush in between each one. And it even has a 100-foot hose reel if I want to do fence line treatment. So anyway, it's a very good deal. Most of the time, the research trials have already been conducted on research stations, and then that technology is then taken into the fields to show our clientele the benefits of using the new technology. And it works great. It works great. But once these practices can be viewed, it can motivate the people for adoption of new practices by showing the superior results. And what you see here is this is a trial that we're doing on the very top slide is a herbicide trial we're doing on Cavender's Ranch. You know, the Cavender's Boot City, they have their headquarters here in Tyler, and they have a ranch down in Cherokee County. And we use that ranch as one of our herbicide locations for greenbrier control. But in this bottom picture here, you're seeing Stephen Goen. And did a fence line treatment over in Rains County, and then replicated that same result demonstration over in Wood County. So we actually got 2 data points from this trial, 2 different locations. But once these practices can be viewed, it can motivate the people. And that's what we need. We need to motivate our clientele to get out of the old practices sometimes and go to the new. So these new practices are compared with the old ones, that our clientele may see the results themselves. But always, and it's imperative, you need to keep your records and field notes to put in the result demonstration summary. So if you're doing a herbicide trial, you want to know what your wind speed is, what your air temperature is, what your soil temperature is, and then keep those records, because you're going to need to put all that stuff into your result demonstration summary. But your result demonstrations, they can deal with a single practice. It may be concerned with a series of related practices. And what you're seeing here in this top slide that I had is this is the trial that I'm doing here in Smith County, and Resilon is a new pre-emergent product that's coming out for sandbur control. The only thing we've had in the past that is labeled was Prowl H2O, and producers didn't really like using that product because it stains everything. Your application window was very small. You had to get a rain within a certain period of time. Well, one thing good about this Resilon is, you can put it out in January if you wanted to, and then it takes about a 1/4 inch of rain to incorporate it. Well, we don't have any data here in Smith County or the surrounding counties. And so what we're doing is we're using this research plot. And then I got to thinking, you got standing forages, and what if we're going to burn it off? I mean, would burning it off increase the efficacy of the Resilon, or would it decrease the efficacy of it? And there's really no data on that. So what we're doing is this is a replicated plot, and we're comparing 3 ounces and 5 ounces respectively. And we burned it off. So the plots are running north to south. And so I basically got 2 result demonstrations in one trial. And what you see here in the picture is I'm using the producer's sprayer and tractor, and that's him getting ready to put the Resilon out after I flagged the plots. But the result demonstration needs to remain as an educational tool, and in my opinion, never become just a data gathering technique. If we're going to be using result demonstrations, we want that producer to see what's going on. So what a producer himself does or sees, they will believe. They will believe it. So what a result demonstration does, it is a good, what is good for one person will have general applications to others under similar conditions. And it shows the advantage and applicability of a recommended practice in a producer's own situation. And if we can take that practice and put it out in the field and showcase it, it'll motivate our group of peoples to adopt new practices. And it also builds confidence between producers and extension agents. And Josh, we talked about that. Another thing too is Shane is going to talk later on, but if it was in my opinion, you want to get a producer that is very proactive in your county, and get one and go to your kingmakers, the ones that can make things happen in the county. And when people start seeing your kingmakers and everything adopt these practices and to show the benefits of our result demonstrations, it's like a domino effect. It'll just go out. I mean, people will just keep coming to you. I've got most of my result demonstrations are multi-county. I work with agents like Stephen Gowen, Tommy Phillips, Brian Triplett, Shaniqua Davis, Aaron Lowe, Truman Lamb, Jamie Suggs, Spencer Perkins, and Greg Grant. We've got 6 result demonstrations going on this year. And, and some of these younger agents, and they, we try to help them and show them the benefits, and they learn. I learned when I was a new agent. I had excellent, older agents. Johnny Cates is no longer with us, but he was a retired extension agent in Wood County, and I learned so much about dairies just for him. I never stepped foot on a dairy when I went to Wood County, and I went and knocked on his door, and then looking at all the research that he had done on grazing dairies and everything. Extension specialists would come to Johnny and run things by Johnny to see if he think that if it would work, and because he had all the field research, he's already done it. So on grazing dairies. So, I mean, that just, he set himself apart. So what I mean by that is, you can develop innovation leadership. You would be the go-to person in that county when it comes to these certain demonstrations that you do. And Josh, talked about that earlier. So result demonstrations are very important. I love doing them, but the biggest kicker is you've got to find the ones that are going to be relevant and people in your county can utilize. So with that being said, meet your committees. I mean, we had people coming to us all the time wanting us to try their products out and everything. And I tell them, so I'll put your product in the trial. And but whenever it's unbiased, so whenever I write it up, don't get mad if your product does not, look good in the trial, or sorry, if it does, I'll showcase the data. So, but anyway, with that being said, we have a lot of multi-county result demonstrations, and then we can get a lot of people on field tours, because you always, in my opinion, you need to showcase your result demonstrations. So with that, that's all I got. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain the questions.
How is funding handled for multi-county demos, such as soil testing for the liming?
Okay. Shaniqua and Jamie Sugg and Stephen Gowen, we're doing a liming study. And what we do is we got pelleted lime compared to conventional Georgetown ag lime to liquid lime, and in all different rates. And what we've done is Shaniqua secured the location, and it's a great location because it's one of her county commissioners' places. So, and it's right there on the highway, and we're going to get a lot of mileage out of it. But how do we secure the funding? Well, we contacted the different agribusinesses, and they donated the lime. We had 3 different companies donate the lime, and then Shaniqua is funding the cost of the soil samples, which we got a reduced rate from the A&M lab. We had to fill out some paperwork, and she's securing that funding through her leadership advisory board.
Okay. Thank you, Clint. I'm sure everybody gained a lot from your presentation. We appreciate you taking time to be on today. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Megan Clayton. Dr. Clayton is a rain specialist out of Corpus. I know everybody in their career has a family, a group of families that they think a lot of as they work in a county, and Megan's family is certainly one of those in my mind that was one of those families. When I worked in Collin County as an agent, she was growing up as a 4-H'er, and her brother, her mom and dad are just great people, and made working for Extension a fun place to go to work every day. So Megan, I'm gonna turn it over to you to visit about the applied research.
Great, thank you, Darrell, and thank you for that really nice introduction. I'll have to pass that on to my parents. Today I'm talking about defining what is applied research, which Darrell's absolutely right. That was one of the kind of hot topics when our group met, and I don't think maybe we expected it to go that way, but I hope after this presentation you at least have a more defined place in your mind where you think about what's the difference between applied research and result demonstrations. So when you Google applied research, you get a lot of different answers, and I kind of tweak some of these to fit my own scenarios that I have in my head for Extension. But really, applied research is the use of scientific method and the knowledge to attain practical goals. So a lot of times we talk about basic research as something that's just looking for something to prove knowledge, to increase our knowledge about something. And one example might be, we had some research done through Texas Tech on Weesatch. And this student was looking at when that tree is moving carbohydrates down to its roots. Well, that's very basic research, but then we can use that research and apply it in ways along with our knowledge about the way herbicides could work on that tree to discover new leaf application methods and the timings behind it. So lots of good basic research can be turned into practical research later on. There's answers for specific questions aimed at solving practical problems. So I think if we're doing something, we know that it needs to be important to those clientele that we work with. Often our applied research has specific commercial objectives. and that's in the form of products, procedures, or services. So as they were speaking about in the previous talk, a lot of times we're working with certain companies or with certain products to test them so that our clientele do not have to go through the expense of putting money into some practices that kind of have high hopes that may not actually work out for them. Also, applied research is very solution oriented. So basically, how the heck are we going to do this? And a lot of times when we have a problem, we have to think about how we could design a program that or project that could actually lead to a solid answer for those questions. As we already talked about, it's opposed to basic research. Applied research goes beyond seeking to gain knowledge, but seeking of how to apply that data. And it's the application of specific basic research findings. And then another thing I've thought about with applied research is that a lot of times in agriculture, people learn through experience. And I'm not discounting experience of people that have worked land for a long time and could school me on different practices that make sense for their location. But what applied research does is takes that experience and puts some numbers to it to prove if that experience is going to work out in other locations and in other situations, or maybe more fully define the variables that go along with the success that somebody has found. So I always get a little bit unnerved when professionals talk about something that they're suggesting others should do that's not backed by data. And that's not because I'm discounting the experience that they've had with a producer, but I think it's important to make sure that we always couch our data with other variables that go along with that research, and that we know that it's replicable over space and time. So when I actually put a slide together and compare these two, it becomes much more clear in my head. So I hope it does for you too. Applied research, we're searching for answers. We do not know the answer that we're going to find. We're unsure of the outcome. But with a result demonstration, we're showing what we already know. It's already in our back pocket. It's already published in our publications. And we're demoing it firsthand or showing something locally or regionally that people otherwise might not have a firsthand experience with. So it's kind of the, I don't know what's going to happen here versus the, hey, check this out. This is something really cool. I think you need to understand that could help your operation. So there's some certain characteristics that I would tie to applied research. And that is that it's randomized and replicated, as you already heard Dr. Parker talk about this morning. If we don't have randomization and replication, then it's very hard for us to know what variables go around our recommendations. And it's very hard to know if they're going to work in other areas. It also has to be repeatable. And I love that they talked about demonstrations as far as you've got to document the weather conditions and everything about, you know, if you're doing brushwork, the tree's physiology. We have to know what's going on at that time so that that's repeatable in other areas. And when you do a demonstration using someone's applied research, you want to make sure that you're doing it under those same conditions so that you do get the same results as was found in the research. Data has to be collected over space, which is just locations across maybe the state or the area where the same problem exists, and over time, so different years. We know, especially in Texas, we find very different weather conditions depending on which years we're talking about, or even which seasons of the year we're talking about. And I think it's important to gather data under different conditions to be able to say if what we've found will hold up over those different years and also over different locations across the state. And I think it's important to note that what a project or an applied research project looks like in one discipline may vary greatly to another discipline. And I know Dr. Parker and I were chatting about this very training, and he was talking about the need for replication. And I said, you know, there's some situations where I might feel more like I'm doing pseudo replication because the situation doesn't allow for a true replicated setup. And my replication is more having it at other locations to be able to compare that to. And he actually brought up a point where he did some insecticide work where the location just didn't allow for true replication as well. So sometimes when we're not working in perfect crop rows, for example, it's a little bit more difficult to come up with how we're going to set up a really true applied research study. And I think a lot of times we're doing the best that we can to figure out what's going to be the best scenario, and maybe then that's later replicated again. So just note that sometimes replication and randomization may look very different. We also have the option we're going to learn about in later talks about blocking. So if we know there's two very different areas, say, of a field, we may want to put our replications in both areas, make sure that all of our treatments are applied to both areas so that it's fair. So we're really just talking about making some sort of project that we can repeat in another area and it would turn out the same way. So we know that Extension's reputation is founded on this history of solid research and then the subsequent demonstrations that really promote the research findings that we've already gathered. And this was true way back in the day, and it's very true today. And I think we're talking about kind of reinvigorating applied research and result demonstrations within counties, but it's something that we've always been carrying on, and it's always been a very present and prevalent part of what we do. Applied research supplies our county offices with data-backed knowledge and opportunities for firsthand development in the research of these new technologies. And it keeps our specialists as leaders in their field. Without doing applied research, I would not be on the cutting edge of what new technologies are coming out, and I wouldn't be as knowledgeable as I am, as I currently am, in working with county extension agents and being able to see firsthand how these things were developed. When you know how new technology came to be, it's much easier to apply that to different situations within the different regions of Texas. We also know that designing applied research trials does not have to be complex. And I think especially when we're trying to answer a very clear question that's been presented by our clientele, a challenge that they've found in their operations, it's much easier to visualize how we could replicate and randomize something to come up with some true hard data to be able to then provide to our clientele for them to be successful. We also know that applied research and demonstrations, for that matter, should be one of the most re-energizing aspects of our job. I think when we start talking about new trainings for things, we have these visualizations that, oh man, there's going to be more boxes that I have to check for my job and satisfy the need for putting out more result demonstrations or conducting applied research with our specialists. And it goes beyond educating with regurgitated information. When we're putting those applied research projects in our counties, we're really coming up with these new solutions for existing challenges. And to me, that's very exciting. I think that takes us to the next level where we want to be, big players and be able to always be offering something new to our clientele. So applied research, this is a really bad dad joke, by the way. Applied research gets to the bottom of things. These are a couple of my interns several years ago who did a side project where they collected cattle feces in different pastures, some that were native and some that had introduced pastures with varying level of supplementation to the cattle. So we were checking out their cow poop. But really, that's the truth. Applied research is just trying to get down to the nitty gritty of what actually works and what can we just sort of discount. And the best way to do that is through using the scientific method and figuring out how to get valid data to pass on for future demonstration projects. And that's all I have. I kept it very simple, but I'm happy to answer questions if there are any in relation to applied research.
Okay, I have that it's 1 o'clock, and let's go ahead and get back started again. This afternoon, one of the goals of this afternoon is to hopefully have everybody understand the scientific method and how to utilize that method in conducting result demonstrations and applied research. To present this topic, we have Becky Bowling. She's a extension specialist in the Soil and Crop Science Department, and I think focuses most of her work, Becky, if I'm not mistaken, is in urban water. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, I think she's at Dallas office. So anyway, we'll turn it over to Becky and let her visit with you a little bit about the scientific method.
All right. Thank you. Let me get this all queued up here. So now that you guys got a belly full of food, it's my job to try to keep you awake as we talk about the scientific method for the next 30 minutes. So try to keep it pretty brief. And I am going to ask some questions. So make sure you're ready by your chat to participate a little bit. First thing I wanted to do is start off with the definition. Always a good place to start when we're talking about something like this. So what is the scientific method? Merriam-Webster defines it as principles and procedures for the systematic pursuit of knowledge involving the recognition and formulation of a problem, the collection of data through observation and experiment, and the formulation and testing of hypotheses. So in a nutshell, we can kind of think of it as this process. And if you go and you Google the scientific method, every place is just a little different in terms of the number of steps that they may define, but the general process is going to look about the same, which is that we start off by observing a problem or making an observation that then forms a question. We do a little bit of background research, and then we ultimately construct a hypothesis or a theory for that we're going to kind of work with as we move forward with our research. And we're going to test this hypothesis with an experiment. There may be some calibration there in that process to find a procedure that works well for us. Then we're going to take the data that we collect from that experiment, analyze, draw conclusions, accept or reject that hypothesis, and then communicate or report our findings. And we'll go through each of these in just a little bit more detail as we go forward. So I did want to start off kind of talking about why does this matter? Why do we use the scientific method? And I think there are kind of two really big reasons why this is important. The first is that it creates a framework for us to be systematic and organized in the way that we approach research and in the way that we approach science in our positions. This allows for the greatest potential for us to advance that science, which I'll talk about more in here in just a second. And the other thing, which is also really important, is that the scientific method is really there to minimize bias or prejudice in the experiment. And so no matter how objective we try to be going into something, just as a function of our personal experiences, our cultural background, whatever it is, a lot of times we're going to bring some kind of bias with us into the research. And so we do want to have something there to kind of minimize the impact of that bias on the work that we're doing. So I wanted to kind of expand on this a little bit within the context of extension and kind of how we're talking about this today. Why is the scientific method important? So this comes back to kind of that first idea. So when we do a really good job of organizing and recording what we do, it creates the biggest potential for us to advance the science on whatever topic or problem we're trying to address. Many of us, when we're doing these applied research trials or we're doing results demonstrations, it's to help solve a problem for our clientele. And so when we do that work, we want to set it up in a way that's going to give it the greatest potential to be of service to the clients that we're working with and to others in our industry. The other thing we want it to, if it works, we want it to be easy to replicate. So, if Kara Matheny in Washington County does a trial and she finds that it's really successful in solving a problem, and now Janet Laminack up in Denton County wants to try it, it's gonna be a lot easier for her to do that if there's a really clear methodology as to how that trial was approached, so that she can just take that methodology and apply it to her unique county. One thing I heard Dr. Clayton mention earlier was the importance of recognizing we're a big state. There's a lot of diversity in our climate, a lot of diversity in our soils. As we do a lot of these applied research trials, a lot of times we do have to repeat it across multiple parts of the state to really see, is it applicable in my county versus someone else's county? And the last thing, which I also think is really, really important, is comes back to that second big thing, which is minimizing bias, right? So it's really important in our role that we want to demonstrate objectivity and thoroughness in the work that we do, because this is how we foster trust in the public and in the clientele that we work with. And so we really want to do everything we can to establish ourselves as being trustworthy experimenters of science. And so I think this is kind of all part of that. So let's get into a little bit more back to the scientific method and what this process is going to look like. There's everybody's favorite scientist, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Unless you're more of a Bill Nye fan, I don't know. You guys let me know who your favorite public scientist is. So first step of this process is going to be, again, observing and asking questions. So I've kind of created a little example here for us to consider as we move through this process. And I would say this is a problem that is very real, that I get a lot of questions about from counties across the state. And so observation may be that sandburr is a major weed problem in my county. Current pre-emergence herbicide timing recommendations don't seem to be working. So my question is, would changing pre-emergence herbicide application timing lead to better sandburr control? Now, this is where I want to do just a little interjection here, okay, and talk about something that's kind of special about us in Extension. So, the way that we think about the scientific method within the context of Extension is unique because we're pretty awesome. We're kind of special, all right? And what I mean by this is that the observations that we make and the questions that we ask that kind of inform the research that we do should reflect something much bigger than ourselves. And this isn't always true, right? When we think of other people that conduct research, it may just be something that those people find interesting themselves. But in our positions, we really want the questions we ask to be part of something bigger and to help solve a problem for a larger piece of the public. And so what we might do to kind of inform these questions is reflecting on our notes from site visits or other face-to-face interactions, identifying trends in phone calls and emails that we get, taking advantage of survey results. And this may come from something like Texas Speaks, or you may have a mechanism in the surveys that you conduct for your programs that allows you to kind of get a sense of what some of the common problems are in your county that you might need to or want to build a research project around or a results demonstration around. Conversations with colleagues in Extension, or rollouts in new technology. So many of us may choose to look more closely at new pesticide products that come out, at new fertilizer products, new cultivars, varieties. Maybe we want to see how new drone technology works for use by some of the clientele that I work with. And so a lot of different things that can kind of inform the research programs that we build. So one thing I wanted to do here is take a moment and ask you guys, what would be an example of a problem based on your interactions with clientele in your county that you think would be interesting to explore from a research perspective? Just curious. Privet control. Yeah, there we go. Usually weeds are like a quick go-to for a lot of people because you guys get a lot of questions about those. Laura, you can't just piggyback off of Janet's answer. You got to come up with something that's unique. And I'm just kidding. Okay, Beth, that's a good one. That's when we get a lot of questions about how do we manage turf and heavily shaded systems. Yeah, so for the most part, just as a function of what we do in our day-to-day jobs, most of us have a sense of like what would be a really good research topic or something that we would love to have more information on to serve our clientele. There we go. I like that one, Laura. Okay, so once we've kind of made our observations, we've asked this question, the next step is to do some background research. And there can be a little bit of back and forth here where maybe I have an initial question, I conduct a literature review. This helps to maybe shape or kind of fine tune the question that I come up with. So for example, if I'm coming back to the sandburr problem, I may do a little literature and I may find that sandburr hits peak germination when soil temperatures reach around 72 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, a lot of times, at least in turf and landscape systems, our pre-emergence herbicide timing recommendations are really geared more towards weeds that germinate earlier than that. So weeds that germinate when soil temperatures are between 55 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So here I see maybe there's an opportunity to improve the efficacy of my pre-emergent program by just delaying or making a second application a little later in the spring, knowing that sand burr germinates a little later. So now that becomes kind of a clearer question that I want to ask. So this then leads to a hypothesis. If a pre-emergence application is made closer to that 72 degrees Fahrenheit soil temperature, then pre-emergence herbicides will be more effective. So this is my prediction that I'm making based on my observations, based on the background research that I've conducted. I'm a big fan of having hypotheses structured as an if-then statement, something a lot of us learn when we're really young. I think it still works very well. So that's kind of what that example is going to look like there. Then at this point, I'm going to want to design an experiment to test my hypothesis. Okay, and this is where a lot of our other research principles come into play. Some of those you guys have already talked about today, others you'll talk about more later. But if we decide to set up an experiment to test this, there should be a control. There should be appropriate industry standards for comparison. I'm talking about changing a recommendation. So I want to have what the typical recommendation is included as a comparison. In applied research, we want there to be replications. We want to use this as an opportunity for support and collaboration. Is there another county that's interested in kind of replicating this effort with me where they are? Is there a company that's willing to donate some herbicide to help support this research? And I want to have a plan for taking thorough data. That's going to all be part of this experimental stage of testing my hypothesis. So here's an example of what this might look like in the form of a trial. And I won't get into this in too much detail because I know you guys are going to talk about this in other formats. But if we're going with this example, this is what I may set up. I may identify an area where I've got a significant sand burr infestation typically, and I may have 3 treatments. I may have a treatment where I use no pre-emergence herbicide at all. That's my control. I may have one where I apply my pre-emergence herbicide at the typical recommendation, which is around 55 degrees Fahrenheit soil temperature. And then I may make a later application at around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, because I just want to get a sense of, if I change my timing for my application, is that going to have a more significant impact on sand burr? And so this is how my experiment may be laid out. You'll see here, I've got 4 replications built into this. So I end up needing quite a bit of space in order to do this and make it work. And here's the thing. Usually when we're doing research, I was unable to be on all of the talks this morning, so maybe somebody has already hit on this, but more often than not, something goes wrong, especially the first time we do something. If I had a nickel for every time something went wrong with research I was working on, I wouldn't need a salary. And so that's really important to kind of keep in the back of your mind, especially if you're new to doing research or being part of research. Recognizing that you're always learning. There's going to be things that sometimes they're mistakes that we make. Sometimes they're things that are totally out of our control. So just be patient, take lots of notes, ask for help, recalibrate, try again, and just know that that's just part of the process. And once we've completed our experiment, we've got our data, that's where we get to this next step, which is to analyze that data and draw some conclusions. Okay, and so that's where we want to utilize appropriate statistical analysis based on the experimental design that we used for our study, draw our conclusions, accept or reject our initial hypothesis. And here I got a couple of notes for you guys. So, and again, this may be something that somebody's already touched on or will touch on again later, but it's important to use everything we learn, good and bad, to inform future research trials. And so this is where taking really good notes is important, keeping an open mind, being willing to kind of learn from mistakes, fine tune your process. And maybe even more importantly, it's really important to learn that even if you don't quite get the results you were hoping for, which first of all, hoping for results is an indication of your bias, right? So there we know that bias is in there, but a lot of times we do go into an experiment kind of hoping for something, especially if we are trying to solve a problem, we're looking for a solution. And even when we don't get that answer we're looking for, it's still valuable toward advancing the science, right? So we still want to record that. We want to report that somewhere because it allows us to learn what doesn't work. So when somebody continues, when either you go and do more work to look at this or somebody else does work to look at this, they can modify the approach that you used, make changes to continuously learn and try to fine tune that process so that we can keep moving forward. And so, even if you do a study and you find, we did our Sandburr study and we saw absolutely no differences no matter what we did. The plots that had a pre-emergent looked just as bad as the ones that didn't, well, this is still important. It may indicate that the issue is not with the timing, that the issue may be with the active ingredient, that the issue may be with the application method of that product. And so still meaningful for us to collect, reflect, and report on that. So then our last step is going to be communicating our findings. And this is the other space in which extension is kind of special. We are really uniquely designed and specifically designed for the purpose of communicating research findings. And so we want to recognize that and take advantage of that as much as possible when we're doing this kind of work. We want to be creative in the way that we communicate our findings, thinking about different approaches that we can take, whether it's working on extension fact sheets, putting it in a newsletter, finding connections through popular press, using social media, having a field day, a lot of different ways that we can be creative here to communicate our findings. And we get to go a lot of times kind of one step further in extension where we're not only communicating the findings of the work that we do, but we also are collecting data on how well we're communicating, right? And so this allows us to take our research one step further. And let's say that I do find that changing my application timing for my pre-emergent with Sandburr does make a difference. Now I want to know, as I share that information with my clientele, how well am I communicating that, and what is the impact that it's having on reducing Sandburr, reducing herbicide inputs throughout my county, reducing or improving yield depending on the system. Are there economic benefits to the fact that I've communicated these findings? And so, those are things that, we have them here at the end of this methodological process. But there are also things that we may want to think about at the very beginning as we're getting started on this. If I decide to pursue this as a research trial, what are the potential implications of this work depending on my findings? And how can I shape the trial, and how can I kind of shape what I'm going to get out of this to make sure that I can have a measurable impact later when I'm communicating it to the public? And so, again, we do have some ways in which extension can think about the scientific method a little differently at the beginning and end of the process, and kind of thinking about it in terms of a broader impact. I think when we think about some other research scientists, a lot of times the result of their work may be a peer-reviewed publication that 5 people read before the end of time, and not to diminish that, but again, one of the cool things about extension is that we can be really creative in the way that we communicate our findings and extend that to a much broader audience and set it up to where it's really applicable and really helps people. So I just encourage you to embrace that and be as creative as possible. So I'm done early. We were threatened by Dr. Hale to make sure we do not go over. And so I made sure I did not commit too much. So there's plenty of time for questions.
Any questions for Dr. Bowling? Thank you very much. And I'm sure everybody, excuse me, will benefit from that information. We'll go ahead and move on, being that we're a little bit ahead. We might get through a little early this afternoon. One of the other goals today is to try to help, make attempt to help you understand a little better about working with committees and addressing issues and identifying various topics that could be utilized in a result demonstration and be the best platform maybe to address the issue. visit with you today. We got Travis Frankie. Travis is the county extension agent in Ag and Natural Resource in Guadalupe County. Has a long history of doing stellar work in this area of result demonstration and applied research. So, Travis, I'll turn it over to you and let you have the floor for a while.
It's a pleasure for me to be here today. And when Todd called me to be a part of this particular program, I was very pleased to do so. And because I do think that result demonstrations and applied research is a very integral part of our particular program. And if utilized correctly, it can be a very good educational tool for not only teaching yourself, but applying that to programs and teaching our clientele, some of the things that work best in your county or things that are going to help them be more successful in their particular operations. As far as a little bit about me, I started my extension career in January of 1991. So I've been around a little while. I'm working on my 31st year in extension. Spent time here in Guadalupe County twice, moved to Gonzales County, was there 5 years, and then moved back in July of 1999 here, and have been here ever since. So I do have a little experience on working with different types of committees and have seen things that work and have seen things that don't work. So basically what I'm going to try to do today is, give you some ideas, make you think a little bit about your committee structure. What are some of the things those committee members can do for you? Maybe some of the things that aren't working as well. And then how can you change those committees a little bit in order to make them or to help or benefit you in your extension career and what you do. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the purpose of those extension program area committees. First of all, they're there to help you. Okay, they're there to help you plan, conduct, evaluate, and interpret extension programs. Okay, and they're also there to give you emerging issues or ideas in your county that you need to address. Okay, prime example of that would be you have a situation in your particular county and it is very important to one or two or three of your committee members that you're actually meeting with. Everybody before us on this program has talked about extension committees and the importance of them. Well, they are your reliance to meet the needs of the people in your county. So they can help you if you've got a really good committee set up, or they can not be so good if they're not set up right or you have the exact, wrong people on those particular committees. So first thing you need to ask yourself, is your committee effective? Or if you're moving into a new county or you're new to extension, what can these committees do to help me? When I came in extension, we were fortunate enough to have trainer agents and we went to these different committee meetings and were taught, those first 2 or 3 years in extension, exactly how things are supposed to work and things that you may see that didn't work, and et cetera. So some of you guys that are coming in new now may not have that opportunity. So what I try to do is just try to put together a few things. So, questions to ask on your committee structure, do I have the right people on my committee? And you ask me, well, what are the right committee or what are the right people? You need to have innovative people on that committee. Okay. You need to have people that are in that particular commodity business, that are kind of leaders in that particular industry, and they need to be innovative. Okay. They don't need to be your friends or close associates, that kind of thing. Because if they're going to agree with you on everything that you present to them, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for ideas for them. What are the issues that are facing the folks in this commodity group in this particular county? Okay, so have the right people on there. And if they're not on there, you know, we need to try to find a way to get those committee members on there that can actually help you. The other question is, are they making a difference? Okay. If they are, you know, the folks that come to your committees, and we've all had them, they come to meetings, they show up every time, but they're not an integral part of that by giving you ideas and et cetera. Do we actually need them on there? Okay. The numbers look great when you go to do reporting and when you have that performance appraisal every year and that kind of thing. Yeah, I had all these committee members that showed up for these committee meetings, but did they help you? Are they making a difference? Are they the key leaders in the industry? Are they helping you plan and conduct programs? Are they giving you demonstration ideas, you know, things that need to be addressed in that particular county? So that's a question you need to ask yourself there. And if they're not, how do I recruit new members? Okay. Where am I going to get these guys from? Where am I going to get the guys that can actually help me do these things? Couple suggestions there. A lot of times on your particular committees, you know, you will have people on there that say, hey, I know so-and-so down the road from me. He's doing some innovative things. I think he would be a good addition to this committee and can help us plan these things. That's one way. Ask your key leaders in your particular county. Whether it be a commissioner or maybe it be the county judge, maybe somebody in their particular precinct that would show an interest that has helped in that type of situation before, that could be a benefit to you. Another thing to look at there, you're all going to do site visits. You're going to get phone calls. There may be somebody that asks you to come out to your place that asks for your opinion on a certain matter, and you see they're doing innovative things out there and could help your entire, or their, I say your program, but in turn, it's actually their program. Sure doesn't hurt to ask them to be a member of that committee and help other folks that are trying to do the same things that they're doing to make them be successful. Another thing, is there a rotation procedure? Okay. I had a specialist tell me one time, Charles Stickler used to tell us all the time, you get the same people on the committee all the time. Sometimes ideas run old. And if you always do what you always done, you're always going to get what you always got. Okay. So I like to have a rotation on my particular committee. Rotate people off and on there. Doesn't mean that you have to rotate them off forever. Okay. Give them a break 2 or 3 years and then you can bring them back if you want to. But you got to have those new ideas coming in, those things that are going to help you plan and conduct the programs that are going to be beneficial to you and to your county. So rotation, in my opinion, is critical in that type of situation. Another thing is, are they trained? Are you training your committee members? Okay. And when I say trained, it doesn't mean just, okay, here is your role. You're going to be on here to help me do this, this, and this. Okay. That's all great and fine, but there are things that you can do during those committee meetings, et cetera, to help them, that expose them to some of the issues that are maybe facing in the county or in the state of Texas that might also be affecting there in the county. Include your specialists. And I know Jason's going to talk about that here in a little bit. Include your specialists in those committee meetings. It used to be a little harder to do that, but now that we've got Teams and we've got Zoom and that kind of thing, we can set that up with that specialist and say, hey, I want you to give us a 10-minute update of things that are happening in the industry that may be an interest to my committee members here. You can use specialists. You can use folks from, the industry, commodity groups, chemical reps, any of that kind of thing, to spark that interest in those committees. And that way they're not only getting that information, they're not hearing you the whole time with those things. Okay. So training is important. Another thing that I didn't put on here, are we meeting enough times? Okay. Are we meeting or are we over meeting? Are we meeting 5 times a year? Are we meeting 2 times a year? Are we meeting enough to get the job done? Okay. My committees, we try to meet, at least 3 times a year. We'll meet early in the year, about the middle of the year, and then try to evaluate everything that we do at the end of the year and start our training, programs for the next thing. You've got to be able to meet with those enough to get the job done. Okay. And then another thing is, are we recognizing them? Okay. The biggest thing that you can do is when you have these particular programs, or you have, different things that you're doing, recognize those committee members. Okay. If they're at a program that you're at that they help plan, you need to make sure that the people that are there know that that committee member helped you do that. And they can do a lot of things, helping you set up the program. They can help you with harvesting or any kind of, demonstration that you're doing. Those are the folks that you're going to rely on to make your program successful. So in turn, you need to make sure that you are doing for them what they're doing for you, and give them that particular recognition as far as that's concerned. So how can your committees help you? Okay, first thing they're going to do is they're going to identify issues affecting their industry. Okay, you're going to, like I said, you're going to want the folks in that industry on your committee, and they want to be able to identify things that are going to help them. So you can put programs together, or demonstrations, or applied research that is going to be beneficial to them. Okay, they're going to help you identify those issues. They're also going to help you plan, conduct, and evaluate and interpret those educational programs. Okay, you may not even realize that they're doing it when it comes to the interpret part, but you'd be surprised how many different folks that they may talk to. They may be best friends with that county judge or that one commissioner in their particular county, and they're going to be telling them what kind of program you're doing and their role in it. So, have those folks on there that are willing to do that. This next one is a big one. Okay, when it comes to result demonstrations and applied research, they can certainly help you identify the cooperators that you need in order to get that done. Okay, and I know we talked, or they're going to talk a little bit about that later in the particular program, but those cooperators are very important. You don't have the equipment, you don't have the land, you don't have all of some of the things that it takes in order to put some of these result demonstrations and applied research projects in. So those cooperators are very, very important, and your committees can certainly help you identify those that can help you with those particular programs. They can also help you identify, like I said earlier, identify new members. Okay, there may be somebody that they're working with, or somebody that's new, that's moved in, that said, hey, so-and-so is doing this and it's affected. We need to get him on this committee. I think he'd be a great help. That would be crucial for your the success of your particular committee. And good committees will help your program be effective and successful. Okay, it all starts with the committees that you have. All right, and especially as you get my age and you get my experience in this particular program in your extension career, sometimes you can run out of ideas. Okay, or you've done this before and you may not think that it's relevant at this time, but they may think it would be. Okay, so the committee structure that we have is very, very important, and it has been a benefit to me in my particular program, and I know a good committee structure can be a benefit to your particular program as well. I've rambled on about committee structures and how they can help you and that kind of thing. You make them what they are, okay? You make them successful, or you can make them not be successful. That is up to you. But the key to it is having the right folks on that particular committee. When I first moved back to Guadalupe County, I was here the first time in the early 90s, and I worked with Gus Person. And any of you, Ripley referred to Gus earlier this morning. Any of you that happen to ever know that gentleman, he was very involved with committees. In fact, when I was here the first time, I think he had 13 of them, committees that he worked with to help him in different aspects of that particular program. Now, I'm not telling you have to have 13 committees because I'm in the same county now, sitting in the same chair he did, and I have 3. So you can make it work with less particular programs like that or committee members, and you don't have to have a lot of them, but the ones that you do have to have or that you do have need to be effective and need to be able to help you in your particular program. I don't have a lot more other than that. I will take any questions that you may have. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk about some of the things that we have here. One other thing that I did not cover that I needed to, sometimes to help these committees, producer surveys or different things like that you can send out. If you have a mailing list or you have an email list, needs assessments, those kinds of things can also help you. If you send those out, get those back, present those to those particular committee members and say, hey, I sent this out. This was some of the biggest needs that we have. How do we want to go about addressing these particular needs that we have here in the county? That is another option too that you have in order to help them generate some ideas and help you in your extension career as well. So Darrell, that's all I have. I know Becky finished early, so I'm finishing early too. And maybe we'll get these folks out of here a little bit earlier today.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Travis? Okay. We're going to go on to the next topic then. If nobody has a question, you're getting off easy, Travis.
That's good.
We're going to go and move to the next topic. And one of the keys to having a successful result demonstration program is having a partnership with specialists. And that's very important. The specialist should be your partner. They should be working in unison with agents, and agents should be working in unison with specialists. So talk about that and talk about the that aspect. We got Jason Ott. Jason is a county extension agent, ag and natural resources in Nueces County. Prior to that, he was in Medina County, and Jason has a long history of doing fantastic work in this area, and I know he'll provide some tips and some ideas that will make be beneficial to you this afternoon. So, Jason.
Thank you, Dr. Dromgoole. I appreciate the opportunity to present to y'all today, and I think Travis did an outstanding job of kind of highlighting the importance of having our committees in place to help us with some of this demonstration work. And behind me, I've got Shane coming up talking about the importance of having those cooperators. And I think when it comes to demonstration work, not to steal anything from his presentation, but that is probably the most important thing it takes to do demonstration work. But the glue in between those two things is that relationship that agents and specialists have with one another. And they are really central in making this deal work, in my opinion, and probably number two behind having that demonstration or that demonstration cooperator. And so, working together, we get things done. Everybody's talked about the values and benefits and importance of having demonstration work, but we also need to recognize that there's a lot of challenges associated with putting in some of this demonstration work. And we've, had some hits on funding, manpower, equipment. I was pretty jealous of some of the equipment that Mr. Perkins showed, but not all the counties have equipment and things like that. Time, and then the knowledge and expertise of experimental design and the scientific method and things. And so whenever we look at all those challenges, they can easily be overcome with that connection between that agent and that specialist. And when it comes to resources, as I said, a lot of times we as agents may not be blessed to have all the resources that we need to put on demonstration work, but certainly through the relationship that we have with specialists, they can put us in contact with sources that do. Working with specialists, they can help us with our variety trials, secure some of the seed resources that we may need, or chemical resources that we may need. They may be able to provide some of the equipment, the specialized equipment that we need to put in some of the demonstrations that we're going to put into place. And then they can give us some of the technical expertise and guidance that we need in putting these together as well. And so those are just some examples of resources that maybe agents can get from them. I think that there's also, some opportunities though that, sometimes our specialists are pigeoned in on what they can do based on maybe some grant funding or things like that. And so having those committees in place that have some committee funds and things like that are another source of resources to where maybe we can help a specialist implement some demonstration work that they may not otherwise have some funding to put into place. And certainly our committees can acquire some resources over time in the form of equipment and things like that that we can have to help with that implementation of a demonstration trial. And then, as Josh Blanick alluded to earlier this morning, those connections that are developed are critically important, and one of the things that are really key to a good result demonstration and having success with that. And so you think about the need that a lot of specialists probably have is that cooperator and having that connection or being able to get in with somebody that can help them get a trial on an on-farm site. But that agent can be that person that can be that link to achieving that farm. On the other hand, there's sometimes some large operations or some individuals that our specialists have contacts with that maybe we're a new agent in a county and may not know all the players, or maybe we just aren't familiar with a particular individual or don't have a history of working with them, and that specialist can come in there and be that bridge to get us in and working with that individual. Same thing with our industry personnel. As I mentioned, some of the resources that specialists can help us acquire or some of the materials that we may need through industry. But being able to identify those individuals can again be a connection that we build and develop and aid us in our network, that maybe we pick them up to be presenters on a future program or hit them up for sponsorship for a future program or something like that. And so I think that's a very important component of the relationship. And we've spent a lot of time talking about the value of these demonstrations to the external clientele, but I really think that for me as an agent, a big value to doing demonstration work is the professional development opportunity that it creates, and the interaction that you can have between the agent and the specialist to learn and develop new skills as an agent is very important to me, and something that I've valued over the years. And just from the standpoint of maybe even discussing program plans for a future opportunity to do some work or some educational workshops in the county, getting to know some of the work that those specialists are doing. Whenever you're, taking measurements 14 feet and 6 inches at a time, sweating on a hot day, you have those opportunities to kind of get to know people on a more personal level and develop some of those relationships. And I think that that's very, very valuable. And I think that there's also opportunities for the specialists to learn from agents as well in those situations where they can kind of pick up some things that are happening in the county that they may not be aware of or may not realize the importance or the need to do programming in that area, or why we want to do those types of things. And so I think whenever you start to look at the things that are needed to make a program work, and the things that a agent is going to want out of a relationship versus the things that a specialist is going to want out of a relationship are going to be fairly similar in terms of what those needs are. But, you know, as an agent, you're looking for whatever's being done to be relevant to the county. You're not going to want to jump in and work on a project that's going to be a big time drain. If that's not something that your committees are asking for, if it's not something that you're going to be able to showcase in a a keystone program or project that you're working on, it's not gonna be of as great a value to you as maybe it is to somebody else. And so you want to make sure that you know, if you're doing something that specialist understands what the needs of your county are, and you know where you're getting that, why you're asking them to come in and give you a hand with something. I think it's you know, the need that you're going to have from a specialist is you know, help with that scientific design. You know, some of us have advanced degrees and had, you know, further skill and are just over time have developed those skills where we have some understanding of the scientific method to a better degree than others. But just working with that specialist and identifying some treatments that you want to implement and getting their support and advice on laying things out. Maybe that specialist doesn't necessarily even need to be physically present when you put those treatments out or things like that, but just providing that technical advice on how to get those things implemented and designed correctly is important to agents in a lot of cases for their success. Having equipment available to them that you can, you know, bring in that specialist that's got a plot planner or got harvesting equipment or a weigh wagon or whatever the situation may call for. It can be, you know, very critical to the success of that, or relying on that specialist's connections that they have. Here in the Coastal Bend, a lot of times, you know, we have access to weigh wagons and things like that, but there's lots of plots across the Coastal Bend that come off at the same time between industry and the equipment and the equipment that we have within some of the county programs and the specialists have access to. That coordination is really important to, you know, get weigh wagons in the right spot so that everybody gets their data collected and harvested in a timely manner, and we can all be effective. And then understanding the evaluation of that data once it's collected. You know, having somebody with a good statistical background to kind of help evaluate that data set that you've collected and kind of give you some input on how that might be written up and presented is important. And so communication, I think, is critically important, and that's something that you'll see on both sides of the need there. We want to be informed as agents of what's going on in our county, and so that's an important component to know that you know, things are going on, and on the specialist side, specialists want to be kept in communication of what is going on with their plots and any concerns that we have or any observations that we're able to make whenever we you know, go by those plots and things like that. And just, you know, some expertise and guidance, I think, is the final thing that you know, we look for as agents from our specialists. On the specialist side, I think, you know, specialists a lot of times really lean heavily on us for location and cooperator identification, you know, making sure that, you know, we're working, or they're going to be able to work with somebody that's reliable, that, you know, they're not going to come back 2 months later and find out that the plot that they put in is not being managed in an appropriate manner, or all flags and stakes that were put out to identify the plots have been, plowed up or whatever the case is that we run into sometimes, so that plot can be a useful data set to us in the future. I think, for these plots, again, we want them to be relevant on our side and from an agent standpoint, but in order to do that, those specialists need input from us on, what those treatments should be. And in a lot of cases, if it's a herbicide treatment or a particular variety that's, common across the county, it's widely planted. We need to make sure that that's probably included as a treatment in that trial ban to make sure that it's meaningful and relevant. And so letting that specialist that we're working with know what those grower standards are that are maybe utilized in that particular area are important, so that they can design those in and that they can be of value to our producers and to us. Layout, if we're going to use this as a field day or have a workshop or however we intend to use it, we may want to have some input. And obviously, when we talk about randomization and things like that, but sometimes in order to lay that out as a field day, we may need to cheat a little and get that into where it's at least that first rep can be in a logical format that we can walk through those plots and see what we're really trying to teach people. And so informing that specialist of what our intention is for the use of that demonstration site and having some forethought put in to where we're going to put that. If it's a brush demonstration and we're going to try to get a tour bus in, thinking about maybe that at the beginning of that program could be important as well. And then observations, obviously we want to get that specialist involved in the evaluation of those plots. But whenever we're looking at that data set, maybe an agent can offer some observations or some thoughts into why a particular treatment performed over another treatment, and offer some valuable insight that maybe that specialist hasn't thought of as they're trying to write up that final report on that demonstration and things. And then again, communication is important, and being on time, I think is an expectation that specialists have. We have that as well. We are all in a time crunch. We all have a full calendar, but if we have the time and resources going into a demonstration site and effort, we want to make sure that we're being respectful of our specialist time, of our cooperators time, and that we're working with them to be very efficient. And then I think we want to be engaged. There's all kinds of locations that specialists can choose from to put in some demonstration work, but they're going to go and work with agents that are going to have an interest in what's going on and be engaged in that process, have some input and communicate and have some of the suggestions that I mentioned above in interaction with them. Otherwise, it's not really a worthwhile effort for anyone that's involved. And then I think at the ultimate goal of all of this at the end of the day is to be recognized for the effort. And I think specialists want to be recognized for the effort as well as the agent. And I don't mean getting a check mark by our name or anything like that, but they want to see that this information is widely utilized. I think we both, agents and specialists, want to see that the information and the effort that we put forth is being utilized by our clientele. And these are just examples of ways that you can do that, from just having it signed on the highway so somebody can drive by and windshield those demonstrations and kind of make some observations of their own as they drive by, or be it field days and crop tours and things like that, where we can highlight some of the demonstration work, distributions into newsletters, and we don't really have a requirement to do result demonstration handbooks anymore, but certainly they can be a very valuable tool to producers in their efforts and observations. Earlier speaker talked about a producer going into a big box store to purchase some herbicides and referring back to those technical bulletins, and this is just another way that you can put all of that information in one place that you have for your county, and get some value out of that. And I think that is probably one of the most important things that helps in a relationship, is that both the agent and the specialist see that information is being utilized and that it's going somewhere. And so with that, that's all that I really have to share for you, and I'll be glad to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Jason? Okay, with that, we'll move on. Shane, are you on yet? I knew he had something he had to do.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll get you on early, get you out to your committee meeting early, maybe. I'm going to turn it over to Shane McClellan. Shane's going to talk about identifying and how to work with best work with cooperators. I know that's always a huge question. Most people's mind is how to approach them and how to sell somebody on the idea of doing this, because it is some work for the producers. It is some work for the producer to do some things a little bit differently. So Shane, I'll turn it over to you, and you've got the floor for the next 25 minutes or so.
All right. Well, thank you. A lot of good speakers, and I apologize. I'm going to cover some stuff they probably did too. I was in another meeting that I had to attend, and I saw a text from Rebecca that said, hey, we're ahead of schedule, and I ran in here and caught the end of Jason's, and all good information, and I do apologize for saying some things they have said. One of the biggest challenges for me when I started out as an agent, I've been an agent right at 23 years, it was identifying those cooperators to work with. It is a challenge, but it also leads to the credibility in the job you do. I use Floyd Ingram, the agent there at Milam County, as my model on this. But if you're willing to do that extra work in the beginning with those producers, honestly, in your career, if you'll do the extra steps, take that time to build those relationships. Ripley talked about relationships. Blanick did. Everybody has. But build those relationships, whatever it takes. Spend more time, then you will get dividends from that over the future of your career. It goes a long way putting those little steps in early. You got to remember, all those cooperators are volunteers, and some people have the notion of more volunteers will help alleviate my workload. Not exactly. You might have to work a little bit harder. And in the beginning, when you're training those volunteers, it's going to take some time. They will increase your footprint in the county. They will make you more visible. They'll make extension more visible. They'll reach more people. That's what they do. They extend our outreach. And the better job you do of training them, of empowering those volunteers, and the bigger impact you will have. Identification of cooperators by a lot of times, it's by chance. It just kind of happens. And I'm not going to go through these one-on-one, but sometimes things just work out. TSTC was looking for a teaching garden, an outside learning area, and Ron Woolley wanted us to do these Texas Water Star demonstrations, and it just lined up. Another time I had hit my row crop committee up over and over again about doing a corn rootworm study for the neighboring IPM agent a couple years in a row. And they kept telling me, no, we don't have a spot. And then this year, one of them wrote it down on a piece of paper as he was leaving the committee meeting, a phone number and a name of a farmer. And he said, let me call them and set it up, and then you follow up. And now there's a corn rootworm study. out on Highway 84. A lot of times those phone calls you get into the office, if you see continuous trends, the same questions over and over, that probably will make a good demonstration. Let me stop a minute. I'm real bad about saying result demonstration, and I'm referring to result demonstrations and applied research. Try not to do that. I'm horrible about it, and I'll write it in things. I wrote it in the newsletter not too long ago, result demonstrations, and I was referring to both. Don't do that. Try to make a conscious effort of not doing that. Phone calls that come into the office might allow you to do a result demonstration or applied research. You keep getting calls about weed control. I got a text the other day. Farmer sent me a picture. Said, "Hey, how do I control this weed?" Well, I looked at the picture, and there's 42 weeds in this picture. I'm exaggerating, but there was a lot of different weeds. I was like, which one? That'd have been a great spot for a broadleaf weed control. Pecan nut caseberry. You get calls about those. A window spray for that peak moth flight. You can trap them. You can measure all that. Good little things that if you're paying attention and just kind of recognize them as they come in, then call those people, ask them, would you mind putting in a demonstration? Let's look at what herbicides would work in your area to control the weeds you want to get rid of. Hybrid Bermudas. Everybody was wanting to plant 1585, jigs, coastal, and the guy called in wanted to know the differences. We ended up putting a plot in. Same thing on cedar Bermuda grasses. And which one's the best? We'll talk to a specialist. They can hook you up and look at those. I want to say it was, I don't remember who it was. Somebody earlier mentioned kingmakers, and that's a big part of helping me when I was a new agent and even when I came to McLennan County in 07. Who is the local leader? And you don't have to always look at the ag producers. It could be a judge, a county commissioner. It could be the neighboring agent. It could be the previous agent. Dale Hurst was an agent at Freestone before I went there, and I relied on Dale. You know who I need to call for beef and forage questions or wildlife. And he was instrumental in setting me up with a lot of those good producers in the beginning. Could be your ag credit people, industry reps, somebody that knows that area. Adele Upmore that runs the West Cell Barn is one of my kingmakers. If I've got a beef and forage producer type question, I'm looking for a good stocker operator. And I don't know them, I'm going to call Adele. She's going to know who they are, what kind of operation they run, if they're a trusting type person, if they're they do everything correct. She can tell me whether they're good or bad. But that's finding a good kingmaker is important. When you first move to a county, there's those ag people that call you and they'll kind of fill you out. Those can be your kingmakers often. Go to their place. Don't let it in with just a phone call. Go look and see what they're doing. And you'll be able to tell pretty quick what kind of person they are and if they're the type of people you want to be a cooperator for you. I know program area committees have been talked about, but I need to touch on them. Keep saying relationships. We are in the people, we're in the people business. That's what we do. And the people that are on my program area committees are not yes people, no men, yes men type deals. They set me straight. They hold my feet to the fire and hold me accountable. And same thing from them, I expect a lot from them. I provide them agendas, meeting dates, everything ahead of time. When you're working with cooperators, give them information. Don't surprise them with a cold call. Let them know you're coming, or if it's even a committee meeting, let them know ahead of time. Put it in writing, put it in a text, something to remind them that you've got something coming up. Be professional, be above reproach. Don't do anything where they're going to question your credibility. I think that goes a long way in establishing that relationship with them. One of my producers a long time ago said he was better able to digest information on a full belly. And I thought about it and was like, what is he talking about? Well, he was saying have every meeting over breakfast and lunch. He just wanted to eat. But after that time, I've done that. Program area committee meetings, or even meeting with the producer, maybe a prospective cooperator. I call them, hey, let's meet for breakfast. Got some things I want to talk to you about. And we'll discuss it. I want you to plant my grain sorghum trial or whatever it might be. And it's a little easier to do that than just cold call meeting them somewhere and then looking at it over a hood of a pickup. Just do it over a meal. They seem to be more receptive of things when you offer it in that format. I always include a specialist in my committee meetings. You need to be the link to the specialist. Specialists have the answers. It's more important that you know who to call or your producers know you can call a specialist. You need to establish that early with those program area committee people. Now look at these pictures of people that are on my program area committees. Most of those people are people I have demonstrations with or have had them with them. Those are the people I rely on to also set me up on topics and who other cooperators might be. Sometimes everything just works out. When chance, your key makers, your program area committee, all of it will come together and offer you something that you weren't expecting. I had a wildlife committee meeting in Freestone County, had a wildlife biologist coming to speak on algae control. And one of the committee members was talking about he had too many does on his place. The neighbors were shooting his bucks. They never would mature. Nothing had was 4 to 5 years old, no good heavy antlers, all these young bucks getting killed every time they jump a fence. And the wildlife biologist is sitting there listening to this, and they start talking about managed land permits. He never talked about algae control. It was on my agenda, and we skipped right over that, and he started talking about what the hot topic was for them. And that set us up for a lot of different demonstrations, some applied research, and then it actually ended up teaching some of them to go out and do some trainings on their own. You never know when some of these opportunities come up. You just have to be smart enough to kind of realize them and take advantage of them. It was mentioned earlier about communication. I know Ott talked on it too. It's extremely critical you communicate with your cooperators. I've made the mistake of going on their property before and not telling them I was coming when they were kind of protective. They didn't want anybody out there without them knowing about it. You need to feel them out and make sure you understand. Most of the guys I'm working with right now, they know I have permission to go out there whenever to do whatever I need to do, but not all of them are that way. I took it for granted one time when I was at Freestone County on a big research plot. It was lagoon reseeding values. We were grazing some, letting some go to flower, and I'd go out there and I would collect flower dates. I don't remember if I was in a hurry or what the exact situation was, but I went out there, I opened the gates, I shut the gates, I recorded all my data, and I left. And next time I went back, there was a lock on the gate. And I called Mr. Bosley and said, I need to get some flower data. And he said, nope, it's done. I grazed it to the ground. And I was shocked, and it made me mad at first, but the more I thought about it, it's his property. He was allowing me access to his place, and I didn't communicate that properly. Lesson learned. And from then on, I always call those producers, or at least send them a text. Hey, I went and looked at the legumes and noticed you had a bull calf. He's pretty good. What's he out of? Wheat's heading out, or have you sprayed this plot? Especially if it's a crop. You need to make sure you check on that. A couple of times I've gone to do some sugarcane aphid counts, and they've just sprayed those fields. And just for your safety, make sure you communicate and let them know you've been there. A simple text of coming out or just being, it goes a long way with keeping those communication lines open. You got to be accessible. Provide them with any contact information you've got, your home phone, cell phone, whatever it might be, email. And when they call, take that call. Don't put it off. When they call the office, call them back right away, or at least as soon as you can. I'm real big about giving my producers that I have plots with all of my calendar information coming up before planting and harvest. I've already called Kevin Huffman, who's got my small grain plots, and I've given him my calendar. I've got Master Gardener meeting this day. I've got BIG conference another day. I've got homeowner visits this day. When that also trains them for doing interpretation events for you. I've never really thought about it until I was putting this together, but I've got some of those guys that do come do interpretation for me. And when I give them my calendar, they know a little bit more about what my job requirements are from a day-to-day basis. And hey guys, they're going to respect that. They're going to use that because you gave them a heads up. They can plan a little bit better. It was mentioned earlier in the text chat from Parker about specialists helping you harvest if you can't go. Have a backup plan, either a neighboring agent, a specialist, an industry rep. I'm blessed to have a lot of industry reps that like extension. And if I have a problem, I can't plant, I cannot harvest, there's a lot of them I can call and ask them to borrow a way wagon or whatever it might be to go in my place. Pretty often I've taken seed to farmers. Did it this year before Star Texas Go Show. Took seed to the producer. He was involved in the design of the plots. He knew exactly what everything needed to be taken care of, what to do, where the plots went. Then he planted them without me. He put it on Instagram. Hey Shane, we got it done. 2021 corn planting is over. Keep them involved and definitely be accessible. Let them know that it's valuable to you, that they know where you are and kind of what you're doing. Make yourself available to them. If you go in it and kind of nope, can't do that, can't do that, and they're gonna quit on you if you don't make yourself accessible. I give all my cooperators a job, whether that is speaking at an event, hosting a field day, introducing the speaker, opening the day, opening the meeting, whatever it might be. And I mentioned already, interpretation events with elected officials, I use my cooperators. I usually don't say a thing. I may shake the representative's hand, introduce the cooperator if they don't already know them, and I let them talk. I let them tell my story, extension story of what we're doing. I've given him my dates, my calendars. He knows what's up. They know what we're doing. So I do the same thing on reporters and news stories, whether it's horticulture, whatever it may be. You've got people that are cooperators you work with that know those situations and those issues. And those news reporters love to quote a farmer, a producer, a cooperator, a pecan orchard manager, whoever it may be. It gives their story credibility when they can quote those types of people. Your volunteers, your cooperators have got to be vested. They've got to have some skin in the game. I know I heard that earlier from someone. They've got to feel ownership of that program. Include them in everything you do that you can, whether it's collecting data, whatever it might be. At least give them that opportunity to tell you no. It'll make them feel good. And sometimes that can create maybe more work for you, but in the end, it's definitely going to pay some dividends. I always give my cooperator the results before I just send them out to the public. Kind of, they feel good about it. They know they're going to get it. They also kind of catch those boo-boos and mistakes you might make. Specialists usually get a copy of my stuff second before I put it out to the public, but I let my cooperators look at it and kind of give me some feedback and hear what they have to say. Several of my producers are Instagram junkies. They're on it all the time. They're in a tractor plowing or whatever they're doing, and they're on Instagram posting stuff. And they use those formats a lot of times to brag about extension programs or their involvement in extension programs. Really good way to get a county raise. Sounds simple, is do a good job, take care of your cooperators, and they will sing your praises, I promise. Got to show them appreciation. In some form, manner, you've got to give them credit. A pat on the back is a good thing, but put it in writing, put it in text somewhere. When you're at a program, horticulture program, pecan field day, you see some of your horticulture people in the crowd from your committees, recognize them. Your people that are doing your demonstrations, call them out and say their name and kind of what they're doing. They're putting in a vineyard for me. We're looking at different varieties of grapes, whatever it might be. I also like to gift those cooperators. We have some leftover funds from some kind of programming event. You may buy them knives that have an extension logo on it, a jacket, a cap. That's good advertisement because those people that are putting those demonstrations in are normally some of our best producers, good producers that are respected countywide, area-wide, then they're all advertising extension. We also like to do what we call volunteer appreciation programs, the actual volunteer recognition program. And we'll recognize them and they'll give them a plaque, some type of certificate that's framed. And when those things come out from extension on volunteer recognition, apply for them. Send a cooperator's name in. That means a lot to them. I'm not on Facebook a lot. I try to stay off of it more and more, but I do like to promote my farmers that are my cooperators. On some of these, you've got grain sorghum plot, and I just quickly mentioned, thank you, Mark Wheathorn family. Dan Russell does a lot of our pecan work. I mentioned him. Just a little line about our producers planning. They like to see that. And most of them are pretty conservative individuals. They're not going to brag on themselves, but it sure does help if you brag on them every chance you get. Specialist is another topic. I know it's covered by other people, but I got to tell you, you better rely on them. You got to build a relationship with them. And the stuff I'm telling you is my opinion, what works for me. So if someone else tells you different and their way may work better, I totally agree, it may. But for me, if I have a specialist coming to a program and I've got 5 people in my audience, I'm ashamed. There better be 45 to 50 in that audience. I want it to be worth that specialist time. I am relying on them to give me their time, their mileage, their travel, whatever it might be, to help support my program, that I want to make it worth their while. You need to be the person that provides access to the public to that specialist. It adds credibility to you and your program when you include those specialists in your events. not just your result demonstrations, but have them attend other functions as they can. You'll learn from them and your producers will learn from them. Some of the best lessons I've learned has been right beside one of my cooperators, listening to a specialist talk or help us plan to put in a plot. They can make you look really, really good and help you stay out of trouble because honestly, most of them have been down that road and made those mistakes that they can kind of keep you from making. When you realize that, excuse me, when you realize those cooperators are more than a client, they're not just a volunteer. They're part of extension of what you do on a day-to-day basis, and you'll have some success. Think about what they are giving up to help you. Their time, are they away from their family? Are they, not getting to do a hobby they like? They have money in it. Are they spending a lot of labor helping you get things done that'll support what you need? And what are they getting out of it? Be a friend to them. Hope Huffman's 70 years old. And several years ago, about 12 years ago, she called me and said, hey, I can't read the names on the wheat varieties. I'm driving by, you get those wooden stakes out there. Can you not, you've got some row crop money, spend some money, put up some signs, I can see those from the road. And I thought, oh gosh, so I did it. We made some big, nice signs, put them up. We've been using those signs for 12, 13 years now. We'll clean them up every year, put the new variety names on them, and you can drive by from the road as I said earlier, windshield time and see them from the road. That farmer's been planting that plot over 20 plus years. Those little things you can do for them goes a long way and gets you a lot of miles. Had another producer, he met with some landowners and the landowners gave him some news and I didn't know what was going on, but he called me, he was mad. And he said, I'm not gonna plant that plot no more, it's a waste of my time. You're always calling me when I'm busy. The more he talked, I knew I just needed to say, yes, sir, no, sir, okay, sorry. I just needed to be quiet, not say much. And I was a little aggravated. I didn't know what was going on. And finally he said, I lost that place. And man. If you don't think you make an impact in their lives, you're wrong. We do. His dad was dying, and he just lost a place he'd had in his family for 60 years, and the first person he called was me. So his plot work meant a lot to him, and it's probably silly, but if you're passionate about it and they know you care, then they'll take care of you. A couple of farmers came up to me and wanted to have breakfast. I thought, man, I've messed up, and what did I do? Surely something I did was wrong. And they got to talking to me that morning over breakfast, and all it was is they wanted to plant strip trials, to move our strip trials to replicated plots. And they didn't want to hurt my feelings or upset me. And I was excited. I wanted to go to replicated plots, but it meant enough to them to stop, to visit, to take some time out of their day to discuss it. And we've been doing those replicated plots for several years now. A lot of times those producers put more thought and time into it than you realize, and you need to appreciate them for that. I feel like I have shot a shotgun at a target, and I should have used a rifle and kind of been pretty broad, but just little things go a long ways with working with producers, cooperators, and a lot of them, like I said, do just kind of fall into your lap, chance happenings as far as making them a cooperator. Rely on those program area committees, use those kingmakers, and take care of them. Treat them better than what you would expect to be treated. Look at these pictures of cooperators on these tables. I can call any of them right now and ask them for something, and they would help me for whatever it might be. But take care of those little things, put that extra time in, and they'll take care of you in the long run, I promise. I feel like I went really fast, but that is it.
Great job, Shane. Anybody have any questions? We've got a few minutes for questions. If anybody has any questions for Shane, for Dr. Shane, we'll go ahead and we are running a little bit ahead, but we'll just maybe have a little longer break here in a little bit. Go ahead and And one of the other issues that we comes up anytime we're talking about result demonstrations or applied research is the fact that, where do we get resources? I don't have any money in my budget. Everybody has been in accounting, has been through the same situations, try to put together enough resources to do a good job. And one of the experts, I think, in doing that I've watched over the years is the next speaker, Scott Strawn, is county extension agent in Alcatraz County. He does a great job of garnering resources and then making the maximum amount of educational value out of those resources that he was able to get. So Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you carry on for the next few minutes and share with the group a little bit more about how to maybe acquire local resources to conduct result demonstrations.
Just for those who don't know me, I've been a county agent now for 32 years, and I was just kind of estimating in my mind over those 32 years, I've been involved with at least probably a little over 100 different demonstrations or applied research projects, either being a lead on it or partner with other agents or specialists. So anyways, a lot come to mind, some are really successful and some are probably a little bit more plain, but overall, I think in every situation, we've been able to teach somebody something or get some kind of point across. But anyway, one of the first things that comes to mind when we talk about acquiring resources is, of course, our external partners. And like it was said before, relationships are the key. And basically do the work, get out there and get to know people. And visibility, that was brought up. You've got to be visible. If you want people to support you financially, you got to be able to know them. They've got to know you. You've got to build that kind of trust between you and the people that you're working with and relying on. Of course, when I think about the different partners that will get involved supporting you financially or materially, there's quite a few that come to mind. But of course, the first one, there's no particular order here, but one that came to my mind real quick is, of course, your ag committee, your local ag pack. Hopefully you're working with them and have a great relationship with them, because they're going to be the go-to people for a lot of resources, not just ideas, but they can help you round up things just for your projects. Of course, your commissioner's court. Every county's different. Commissioner court supports different in different counties, but just like Shane said, you might be able to get something out of your court if you're out there giving them recognition, involving them. We tend to think about the courts in terms of maybe supporting our 4-H work and stuff, but they will also, if you'll educate them, they could possibly financially help you in areas with your applied research and demonstration work. Of course, specialists. Again, the specialists are key, and Jason went into that, how to work with specialists. Other agents, hopefully you've got a relationship with agents, and whether they're in your county or surrounding counties, talk to them. A lot of the projects you'll be working on could really help them in their counties, and you can involve them, and it'll help you as well, because some of those demonstrations and stuff will actually be good for their producers to know about. And so don't forget to involve your neighbors. Of course, researchers, they're your other go-to source for different resources. And your FSA committee, go to those FSA committee meetings and sit in with those. The NRCS, the Soil and Water Conservation District committee. In fact, a lot of those committees have some dough. I've learned you can sit in those and find out their interest in different things, and they will donate a lot of times to whatever projects you're doing. Your local water district. In our district up here, the North Plains Groundwater District has been really supportive of a lot of our irrigation work. And of course, they're a taxing entity and they have dollars available. A lot of times, if you write a proposal to them. Commodity groups, we tend to leave it to the specialists a lot of times to write proposals to commodity groups to do different projects, but get in touch with your commodity groups. Agents can write proposals too. You can also write grants for grants. You don't have to just leave that to specialists to do. I've gone to the grain sorghum producers before, and you have to do the paperwork and submit it at certain times. But if you have a relationship with them, you can call them on those sorts of things, and they will tell you the process, and you can submit your own proposals that they will fund. Of course, when you get into grants and proposals, commodity group grants and government type grants, you are going to be very responsible to follow through with those sorts of things to make sure whatever you got gathered money for, that you get it done and report back to them. They're going to want to see that. Of course, your local ag businesses and your company reps, company seminars. If you're going to a lot of those different events, just like here at this beef cattle conference, Andy's done a great job. He has of course, this is a conference, but you have all these vendors here. Well, while I'm here, I'm talking to these vendors. These different companies might want to try different things, and they'll give you resources and materials to do these projects. So let them know what you're doing when you're out at different events, and keep that in mind. But anyway, you have to develop your reputation as a local expert. And when you do that, people will begin to come to you as well as you go into them, and they'll want to work with you, and they will want to support you financially. As far as acquiring resources, of course, with your ag pack, with your specialists, all these different external partners, you're going to want to identify the project, of course, and y'all have talked about that. The next big thing is developing your protocol. And I know there's been a lot of discussion and training on your design, your experimental design and protocol, but that's where you have to determine what you need. And probably one of the key resources is going to be that cooperator. I would say in most demonstrations, that cooperator is going to be the key supplier of most of the things you need. And that Shane got into that relationship and what you have to do there to build that relationship. But that cooperator is going to be the one that's going to supply most of your needs. And if you can do a lot of it just through that cooperator and get buy-in from that cooperator, then a lot of these resource needs will be covered, but not everything. Of course, one thing I say is ask. Don't be afraid to ask. A lot of times we sell ourselves short. I've even been guilty of that, and I recommend that you do not do that. This, it's been mentioned already by others in these presentations that people are really interested in the results of these projects. And so when you ask and you get buy-in, you'll be surprised how much, because a lot of these things will affect them directly, especially your cooperators. And so if you ask, hey, are you interested in doing this sort of thing or supplying whatever materials we need, whether it's seeds, chemical, equipment, they're going to buy in, they're going to do it. Because especially if it helps their bottom line, to them, that's just a part of their investment, is some of this research that we're doing on their place. Again, you've got to be able to explain your purpose and need. If you have mapped out your project, develop that protocol ahead of time and have it all mapped out, then you'll know what to tell them to expect, and you'll know what to ask them as well, what you need. And if you'll be organized from the start, they'll be more likely to submit to whatever you're needing. Of course, it's been mentioned again, follow through, engagement, acknowledgement. Once you get these resources together and you do this project, you need to always follow through, communicate with everyone that's been involved as far as volunteering or donating equipment or supplies, and always find ways to acknowledge them. If you'll do that, and there's been a lot of different suggestions. In my county, we give a top hand award. And that award is to cooperators or donors that have been really supportive in these types of projects. And we'll either do it at a major event where the other people are gathered, and therefore we can give this award and give them recognition. A lot of times I've done it at Commissioner's Court, make sure the media is there to give them a little recognition. And so y'all might have a lot of other creative ways to recognize people. And I suggest y'all share those with your fellow agents because I really think we don't thank people enough. And if we do, you'll always see them come back later to do more. But I think the key to all of this is just be organized and don't be afraid to ask. And my talk is pretty quick. That's about all I had to say. But I don't know if anybody has any questions related to this. But again, I encourage you to really get involved with some external groups. I've had a lot of success with the commodity groups and the local water district, but there's a lot of other groups out there that will be glad to help you. Maybe your city, your city council. A lot of times for some of these horticulture type projects, there might be dollars there, and you just have to watch and pay attention and visit with these commodity group leaders, and they will tell you their time frame of what they're needing and wanting. And a lot of times they will definitely jump in there. But that's all I have. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Scott? Well, thank you, Scott. Appreciate you leaving Andy's meeting for a little bit to share some ideas with this group. And I know you always have a bright outlook and a positive outlook on result demonstrations and the value it has as an educational tool. We're going to go ahead.
Thank you, Darrell. And by the way, yes, feel free to call me anytime. And of course, Dr. Dromgoole has a lot of experience with this too. Most of our audience here, I think, has very few years of experience, but I think we're going to beat you over the head a lot with this, but just don't be afraid to reach out to people. Pick up that phone and call, and you'll find out right away there's a lot of folks that are interested in your success externally and internally, and Dr. Dromgoole is one of them. That's why he's organized this deal, and I'm really glad that he did. So anyway, but thank y'all.
Okay, I see that we're at 3:20 and going to wrap things up for today. Next on our program, we got have a tag team going to visit with you, but we have very fortunate to have Dr. Dan Hale, Associate Director for Ag and Natural Resources with the agency, and then also Danny Nusser, who is the Regional Program Leader in the North Region. They're going to share with you some their thoughts related to the role of the agent, specialist, and others in developing and implementing quality result demonstrations and applied research. So I'll stop there and turn it over to Dr. Dan Hale and Danny.
All right, I'm going to get started. Stop me if it's I've got a little feedback on mine. I don't know, but stop me if there's some issues here that you can't hear me or see what we're talking about. First of all, Dr. Hale and I are in Canadian Texas, and we're trying to make this work in a cubby hole at the beef conference in Canadian Texas. So hopefully we'll be able to get through. I know you've had a good day with this training, and really we want to just take a few minutes to look at this from a perspective of administrators and supervisors that you have, and also just really give you some ideas on why this is important, how you can be successful with your demonstrations, and ideas of what to do with those demonstration applied research projects when you have them. Sorry if this is a repeat of some of the things you've already talked about, but we're going to just hit on it from more perspective and our view of it, and maybe some expectations of specialists and agents as you go and attempt to do these things. I'm sure that you've heard. I'm sure that you've heard Seaman Knapp mentioned several times. I think it's worth mentioning again that this is the core of what we do in demonstrations and applied research from the beginning, and it still applies today. You know, why do we do this, and why is there value even today as we do demonstration applied research? You know, the basic things are the opportunity and value to demonstrate, you know, proven products or improved practices or genetics products. So it's an opportunity to get out there, and you've heard that already today, but that is a huge opportunity locally to be able to show producers maybe technology that we know is proven, but they need to adapt at a higher level. Secondly, I know that you've been introduced to today is applied research, applying new technologies and research results into the large plot or farm replicated research areas, and really taking research from the research farm to on-farm practices and seeing if it works, and maintaining that integrity and replicated design to make sure that we have good results at the end. So both of those are very important aspects of why you should do this today. Basic things that you've really probably already addressed. Another thing that I think is really important to me as an agent, 25 years as I spent as an agent, I know many of you here probably have addressed this, but one of the most important things and values that I got out of it was the fact that you're just seen in the field by your producers. When you have trials, you're out there on a consistent basis, you're checking moth traps, or you're checking populations, or you're doing whatever with your trial on a consistent basis. Think about that as your producers drive by, they see you there, you're sharing information with them in the field, or you're sharing it down at the gin, or whatever it may be. That visibility leads to credibility. And I cannot stress how important it is for people in the ag industry to see you out in the field showing some interest in what they do for a living. You know, it's really easy for us to do that on the youth side because it's a very visible type project that everybody's viewing and looking at. In agriculture, we have to be really intentional about that. So remember that as you set up trials and work with people, have some consistency to where you're seen out there in the field by those guys. It's also a great opportunity for professional development. As you get out there and you learn and you interact with specialists and you interact with those producers, which in many cases are the best professional development we get is with our better producers. You get to learn what they're doing, the practices they have, you're getting to learn the crops that are grown and interacting with them. It's a great opportunity for you to learn from everybody involved. So don't miss those opportunities. Specialist calls and says, hey, I got an opportunity to do this in the field. Take advantage of that because that's going to be an opportunity for you to learn about that specific area. And then the third point here is just an opportunity to develop into that trusted, reliable, credible source for producers. And you do that over time. That doesn't happen overnight. And this delivery that we're talking about, whether it's a demonstration or applied research project, is a great way for agents, particularly young agents, to develop that credibility and trust with producers in your county. And then they start to come to you when they have ideas for these types of trials. It all really works together. I just threw this in here, and I'm sure most of you have already heard this, but you know, coming off of COVID, it's just kind of been a weird year as far as expectations and having to change everything that we started. And I wanted to point out again, as from a state perspective, and all RPLs are on the same page here, that every agent, regardless of what position you're in, whether you're a horticulture agent or an IPM agent or a marine agent or a ag and natural resource agent, you have 2 applied research demonstration plots a year. So you have to establish those. Now, guys, we understand that sometimes you establish it and then a hailstorm comes through there, or it doesn't come up because of drought or whatever, but your intention is to plan and put those things in and have a design for that plot. You need to do that twice a year, at least 2 of those a year. many of you doing more than that. Some of you, you're going to really have to work with folks to get those established. Secondly, one of those two, we really suggest that be in your in-depth program areas. If your in-depth is in cotton or cotton weeds or diseases or whatever it may be, then try to work with that particular expert or specialist to try to develop some type of result demonstration in that area. The reason for that is you're doing an in-depth program in a certain specific area that's been identified by your local folks that that's a need in the county. So it's another opportunity for you to deliver and give educational information through a demonstration or applied research project in your in-depth area. The other thing that I just threw in there, that it is okay to do multi-county efforts. And we talk about multi-county efforts, that's everybody involved in the planning, the implementation, the evaluation, interpretation of all those programs. It's not, Agent A over here puts it in and everybody else takes credit for it. It's everybody's engaged in it. And I think none of us will have a problem with that. And really, it's good use of efficiency. If it's something that you can share with your producers, and it's something that's important to your producers at the end of the day. So those multi-county efforts with quality trials is a good practice too. Dr. Hale, do you want to take over here?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk a little.
That's
all right. Back to it. So, Darrell Dromgoole and Danny Nasser and Jason Ott put a publication together. This has also been included in the handouts that were put together. It's called Result Demonstration, a method that works. And I just pulled two diagrams out of here just to talk through with respect to agents and specialists involvement. And as you go through this 5-step plan, there's a really good way to talk about who is responsible for what. And what we're going to find out, I think, is in a lot of cases, the responsibility could come from a couple different directions. So first of all, we talk, and Danny jump in here as we talk about from the agent standpoint, but we have identified the issues. And so Danny already talked about, one of the most important things for you is to, when you get to a county or when you've been in a county, is to develop a relationship with the people that are growing crops or livestock or involved in ag and natural resources, could be wildlife, whole host of different aspects. And just to go there and get to know people, I encourage our specialists. My expectation is that they're doing that as well. And they should bring along the county agent with them. That's my expectation. So I thought I'd just go through a few of my expectations. That first of all, the expectation is that specialists will do result demonstrations and applied research. That's one of their jobs. They're evaluated on that. They're asked to do that every annually, as well as through the promotion process. That applied research that they do is a significant part of their career ladder, just like it is yours. And so we have that expectation. I have an expectation that they also would go into and talk to producers specifically. I know when I was a specialist, and I probably learned the most, not necessarily from other scientists, but when I went to meat processing facilities and spent time there to understand what the issues are, what the problems that they had. That's the beauty of extension, is where what we talk about taking and extending information out to the people, probably as valuable is what you find out and then bring back to the people that are in the research world. It's really that two-way interaction going up and down our entire extension network as we go from local issues to then conveying it to regional specialists, conveying it to state specialists, and then the state specialists find a particular issue that may be coming to Texas. Maybe it's a pathogen that's coming to Texas that's over in New Mexico, and they're going to then talk to the regional specialists, talk to the agents that might be impacted by that. So identifying those issues is really critical, and working together as a team to do that. And my expectation is when somebody goes to your county, and I have told specialists this, that they would let you know that they are coming to your county if they're working with your particular producer. So that is an expectation that we have. An expectation I have of agents is that they are identifying those issues through their local committees, and then also through just site visits that they're making throughout their county. probably the best thing you can do is develop that trust with those local producers. And so as you develop that trust, you're going to find out those issues, and then conveying those things to the specialist who can help you come up with a plan. And that's the next part, is plan the result demonstration to address the issues. And again, the specialist is there to help you. They're that scientist that maybe would have some examples of how to put together that particular result demonstration. They've seen it done in other places. If not, they can learn from their peers and gather information and give you ideas on the best way to help identify those issues. Some of those you may be able to do just on your own, but some of them may require equipment and chemicals. I know that other people during the day have talked about, how they've connected with their people that build sprayers and get chemical from them. And so there's specialists that have those kind of relationships as well. And they can definitely work with you in that planning process. And of course, hopefully bring the science-based approach to it, as to try to make it as purposeful and meaningful a data that you might be able to gather through that process and learn. So working together in that process of planning that as well. And those specialists, one of their responsibilities is to be there to help you with those issues. And then, as you initiate that result demonstration, and then you establish and manage the demonstration, that many times a specialist may say, hey, can you help me do this? And so I really encourage you, if they're doing a plot and you know about it, you should know about it already happening in the county, and they've already established that. I really believe it's important for you to be with that specialist every step of the way for the purpose of, and I know time is an issue, but this is a tremendous professional development opportunity. And secondly, it also helps that specialist learn more about and get to know you better. And then thirdly, it is awesome for those producers to see you out in the field working hand in hand with a specialist. And it's also vice versa. When you have a result demonstration for a specialist to come by and take a look at or be reviewed, it's really very, I think, purposeful and shows how, as an extension agency, we're working together. And then again, working agents and specialists in the evaluation part of the result demonstration. The specialist is there to help you in that evaluation, gathering the data, looking at the data, helping you understand maybe the statistics that should be applied to it if there's anything specific. And so they're a resource for you, and I look to them to serve that. And then finally, in the sharing the data, publishing those findings, drawing from those recommendations, and coming up with a plan of disseminating the information that was gathered in a purposeful way that will help people better understand the best practices that were learned from that result demonstration. And again, specialists ought to be involved in that. So as we think about this whole plan, there's two ways that you'll see in our agency of result demonstrations. And I believe agents and specialists should be involved in both ways. One would be, quite often USDA is going to go out with a set of grants that they're going to ask, who is interested in looking in this particular issue? If that's going to involve a couple of counties, then that specialist should work through the regional program leader to before they contact the agent. And that should be normal in the process. Regional program leaders should be CC'd in correspondence that go back and forth from the agent to the specialist, just to help that RPL know what's going on. Secondly, if it's a large statewide project, then what I've asked specialists to do is they need to talk with Jeff Ripley first to make sure that we're able as an agency to invest the resources to get that done. If it's going to be 20 counties, and that was a project when I first got here that a range wildlife fisheries person had just was putting in for a grant, was going to look to have counties across the state be involved. And so he approached Jeff Ripley to make sure that they were willing to invest that. And of course it worked out well, because it was a great professional development opportunity for those agents, as well as helping that specialist. And then also there's things that you're doing just on your own within your county, and that specialist is a resource, and I expect them to be a resource helping you throughout that process as it's needed. Danny, you might follow up and just correct anything, anything that's not necessarily correct, but anything I might have missed.
Yeah, I just want to touch on a few, just emphasize it, and you didn't, everything you said was spot on. I hope what the agents heard is that your expectation is that specialists work with them in establishing through this whole process, that they are open to working with specialists, because at the end of the day, that's how we're going to have the most success. In my career, those have been the very best projects that we've had, and when there's involvement from both sides. So I want to touch a little bit on committees, because I think this is so important to the success of these projects, and it's important to your whole success as an agent. But particularly with demonstrations, I would say that we got to get the right people on your committees, and those folks need to be innovators. They need to be opinion leaders. They need to be interested in what you do as an agent and what we do as agency. Sometimes those are as a new agent, are folks are a little bit scary, because they're very knowledgeable, they're very outspoken. They made me as a young agent uncomfortable, but that's who you want, because they're going to share what's really going on out there. They're going to share where you need to go. They're going to tell you when you're going in the wrong direction, and that is so nice when that happens. So if you don't have a committee in place, you need to work on that immediately, because it's going to be key in this. It's going to be key as we go forward, working in teams, and it's going to be key to your success as an agent in that county. If you do have a committee and maybe you don't have the right people on there, there's nothing wrong with adding folks to your committee to make sure it enhances what happens in that county. So that's all up to you. That all falls on you. So you're the one that'll be expected to make that happen. So it starts with your committee. There's a lot of ways to engage those guys. If you have a meeting with your ag committee 3 times a year, demonstration applied research should be on the agenda every time. So it should be something you talk about every time, whether it's ideas, what we need to do, what's the progress of it, how can we utilize these in a field day, or disseminating information, bringing a specialist in to kind of help explain what you're doing. Those are all important things. So your committee, you need to have them engaged. That committee needs to be engaged in this every time they meet. You need to know what your clientele's needs are, and those guys are the ones that are out there looking. They're dealing with it every day. They know what the issues are they're facing. Many times those guys come in. The opportunities I had as an agent many times was a producer coming in with a problem. And I don't know why this is happening, or what do I do about this, and it just created an opportunity. And then we built that into a project where we could show them how to improve that practice. So very important that you listen to those guys and have that relationship with them. They need to be involved in the whole process: planning, identification of needs, implementation of the results, interpretation, all the way through. That committee needs to be engaged in the whole process, and then involved in showing and planning field days and sharing on social media and developing bulletins. However you do that, or choose to do that in your county, and sharing the results. That committee is so important, and I believe if you don't have one, you're going to have a hard time being successful in this area. Get those guys engaged, and I don't care how many they are, but get them engaged in this process. It's going to make your life so much better. That specialist agent interaction is one of the big keys to success in doing these projects, particularly for a new agent, but I think even for our experienced agents. First bullet on there is ownership. And what I see a lot of times is what I mentioned or alluded to a little bit earlier, was that we have an opportunity out there we just don't take advantage of. Or you have an opportunity and the specialist hasn't taken advantage of. Everybody take ownership and value in that project, and it's going to be successful. There's no doubt about it. And so take ownership in your project, every opportunity you have, like Dr. Hill said, you should know every time a specialist comes to your county. And when they call and they say, hey, we're going to be out there, if you can change your plans, go do it. You need to, because it's not just about being out there and being visible. It's also the opportunities you're going to have for professional development. It's also the opportunities you're going to have for just learning about the whole project and interacting with that specialist and producer during the day. Obviously, you guys are at a stage now where that proper plot design and how to best set up your trial to get the best results. And what we're really looking for is reliable results that they can use, that they can believe. Whether that's determined to do a demonstration or whether that's determined to do an applied research project, that specialist can help point you in the direction of how that's best set up. Like I said earlier, enhance credibility for not only yourself locally, but also our agency. As they see everybody's working together and involved together, that just makes our agency more credible, more trusted, and the information more reliable. And at the end of the day, you're going to have higher quality projects with better results, and that's really what we're after. At the end, and when you get it done, one of the things that's worse, the worst thing can happen. I grew up in the era, many of you may not know, but I know Darrell does, and many of the older agents here remember doing result demonstration handbooks. It was just a yearly thing where we put our result demonstrations, our applied research projects, any pertinent information into a handbook at the first of the year and gave it out to our producers at meetings or however we would disseminate it at that time. I started that back before we had computers in our office. We were using mimeograph machines to do those, printing those off and a regular typewriter to type. That just says I'm old. But anyway, that delivery system was really key to get those things out to producers. We have so many other things and ways to do that now with technology, with all the delivery systems that we have. But the worst thing that could happen is if you go through the work, you put together a trial and then nobody knows about it. And I think if you look, we have way too many examples of that in our agency where we've got really quality work, but it's sitting in a file somewhere that nobody can share. So we need to work at really being able to work together, disseminate that information to the people that need it, and really get those results out with quality reports. You're going to learn more about that as you get into the next year or into the next session. The other thing that I mentioned there is today we've got to deliver everything that we do in a variety of ways. And because people get information in a lot of different ways. So it really needs to be in a lot of different deliveries, a lot of different methods, and get information out to anybody and everybody in your county where it's appropriate. If you have the opportunity to show those plots that you're working on, that's just increased value for everybody. Most producers are very interested in seeing what's out there and hearing about what you're working on. And so if you have an opportunity to show those things at a field day and then follow up with the results of those applied research or demonstration plots, that just adds to the value of that program. And then just interpret everything to anybody that has an interest or that could help you interpret it and share it. And that's what we do with all of our programs, but I think it's important with this one also. Dr. Howell?
Yeah, so I mean, this just follows up with what Danny was just talking about. When I work with specialists, ultimately they're saying, well, research referee journal article, that's the ultimate for them. But in reality, many of these other things, at least if you look at their career ladder, can have a very important part of their career, what they contribute to extension. And so that same results demonstration, there's so many different ways that you can disseminate that. I'm reminded of a project that was done by a group of agents in South Texas. Rogelio Mercado was one of the kind of the ringleaders of that group. And he actually taught me. And so as a specialist, you can learn a lot from agents and how they do things. But we had done beef 706, what we call special Beef 706 programs. And in that, I never really thought of it, to be honest, as a result demonstration, but he made that into a result demonstration. What we do in those is we get a group of feeder calves. We bring those feeder calves in. We look at them as feeder calves. Then we put them on feed. And then we look at them, the same group of people, about 60 people, came and looked at them as finished steers. And then a subgroup of them actually went and cut the carcasses into boxed beef. And so, you know, when I got all said and done, he had a beautiful, you know, kind of technical report. He also had put together a slide PowerPoint for the other agents to use with all the data. He also helped put together some videos that went hand in hand with what we talked about. And so I learned from that. He of course, you know, Rogelio put that up into some of his social media outlets. And so it was a way where I'm thinking, usually I'm done, I'll present some data. I may even put together a PowerPoint that I'll present at a class, but there are so many different ways that he took the same result demonstration and worked them throughout the things that he was doing. And of course, he used it in his final report as well when he was talking to Todd Swift and his DEA about, you know, about what he had done over the year. And it was a really fantastic result demonstration, which I never really thought about in that context, because it really was a result demonstration when you think about it. There may be things that you don't even think about that are really truly result demonstrations. Hopefully you're getting some of those ideas as you go through these 2 sessions that we're doing with this particular training. But think out of the box. And when you do this, again, I believe specialists should be involved in helping you with these different processes as far as trying to get that word out about the results of a result demonstration. So that's all I wanted to share on this slide, just to talk about there are many ways that you can disseminate that information. So Danny, I'll turn that back over to you unless you want to add something to this slide.
Nope, I think that's good. I think that kind of wraps up my slide has froze again, but I think the only thing we had left was there we go, was the final slide. I guess, Darrell, that's it. We'd be glad to answer any questions if anybody has. I know Roy Parker mentioned the county demonstration handbooks that we used to do, and they were a great tool. And some of you may be able to find those in your offices. I hope that they're still around where you can kind of see examples of that. But they were a great opportunity for us to share work that we were doing. And I actually have my 1983 first one I ever did. Pretty proud of that. It's not very good, but it's my first one. So it was kind of something to look back at.
So Dan, I'm open to questions. Here's an opportunity for you to hear, at least for me, if you have questions about, you know, how specialists work, why they do what they do, you know, and how they, you know, if there's some questions that you have around that agent specialist interaction, I'd be glad to answer that.
Any questions for Dr. Hale or for Danny? Danny, my wife has put me to work on throwing away a bunch of old stuff I've had packed away for a number of years. And so yesterday evening, last night, I got up in the attic and was going through some boxes, and I found a whole bunch of result demonstration handbooks. And I said, I'm not going to throw them away, because I said someday somebody might ask me if I had one of those one time.
Yeah.
So
anyway. I was very thankful when Hale County went through their move years ago down there. They found some of those demonstration handbooks and gave me some of those, or I would have. I might have some like you. I might have stuff away somewhere and didn't know. Yep. But man, it's kind of neat to look back at.
Yeah, they sure are. Any other questions that y'all might have for any of the speakers this afternoon?
Dr. Hill, I got a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, Shannon.
All right,
yeah.
Shannon down in Harris County. How you doing, sir? So quick question for you. Still fairly new with the AgriLife Extension Service here in Texas. I mean, like, I know there's a lot of talk about, you know, the different research programs and everything that are going on there out there with the specialists and everything, but coming from me, like a new agent, still fairly, that's not seasoned in the system and so forth, how does one find out like what all are the possibilities out there? I mean, because I know we cover a wide gamut of research projects out there. And I mean, do we just wait until one of the specialists send out like an email looking for some partners, or do we take the initiative, or is there like a, I don't know, like a running list or something of who, which specialists or which professors or heading up what programs and stuff, maybe stuff that we've never even thought about before, like as far as like a communication piece like that? Is there anything out there on that?
So to answer your question, there are ways to get that information, but you know what? You've identified a problem that we have in our agency, which is one thing many have heard about the coordinated program areas. We're hoping that as we do that, we'll be able to solve some of those problems, because one of the goals of that is to put together a catalog of what we are doing as an agency in a particular area. So we don't have that, Shannon, just to be honest. The way that's in some of the RPLs, like see Robert's on there as well, and Philip and Danny, that they do this is they have during their planning sessions that they do either at a district or regional level, they'll have specialists share some of that. So just to be perfectly clear, the one way that you can find out is if you have a particular need, maybe reach out to a specialist and just ask them if there's something going on in the area in your particular world, rice or beef cattle or something like that on that side. But I'll open that up to any of the RPLs about how, if there are other ways that we can do that and do a better job. But Shannon, you've hit upon a kind of I believe, weak link.
And I just want to follow up with that. I've had conversations with Dr. Shackelford on that subject matter and everything, and he's been very helpful. But I didn't know outside that scope if there was anything on. But I didn't want to get on the bad side of Dr. Shackelford, because we definitely have had communications on that. But I'm just letting you know what other people might be thinking out there.
It's hard to understand until you go through the process, isn't it? I would say that there's opportunities both directions, and that's the main thing that needs to be remembered, is that there's going to be opportunities for specialists to provide you opportunities to do these things. There's going to be opportunities for you to provide ideas for specialists on things that are important to your producers. And that's where that committee, to me, comes in so key, or that relationship that you're going to build out there with producers, just learning what those issues are. As you identify those things locally, that information gets moved to the specialist. That's what Dr. Hill's talking about, is that information and opportunities go both directions, up through the region, districts, and state, and then back down to you, hopefully to help you with resources. And so it's really got to be a team approach. And that doesn't happen overnight. As a new agent, you're trying to figure out who do I talk to and what do I do and where are my opportunities? And they're going to come if you're out there. And like you said, I think you even mentioned it. Do I need to be proactive or aggressive in that? Yes, I would say yes. You need to ask questions. You need to be asking guys out there in the field what would be important to them. What are the issues they're dealing with? Maybe there's some opportunities you can create from that.
Yeah, so I'd encourage being proactive with specialists. And what I've found out, if I talk to ADHs and even RPLs, a lot of times they don't know what's going on in this area. Nothing against them. They're doing an awesome job. It's just that nobody's communicated it to them. So it's a communication issue, I think, as much as anything, that we just need to work on as an agency. But you communicating with people and asking them, what is going on in this area? Is there something we can do in this particular area to help these producers and reach out to those specialists? And if you don't get let me know if specialists are not forthcoming and not helpful in that area.
Any other questions for Dr. Hale or Danny? Well, let me say it's been a really productive day. I want to thank all the speakers, have done a great job today. Also want to thank Rebecca, Dr. Hale's administrative assistant, She's kept us plugged in and online all day, and has put a lot of work into getting everything ready for today and for these upcoming meetings. So we appreciate you, Rebecca, and want to remind you that the next session that we will have will be on May 11th, and it's kind of spread out a little bit. And hopefully, the reason they are spread out is we hope that gives you some time to kind of think about some of the things that's been talked about today and been shared with you today, and hopefully you can maybe put that in the context of your own county and how you might apply some of these principles to your own program and to improve your program and improve your abilities to manage and plan and implement result demonstrations and applied research. With that, I want to say goodbye and thank y'all for being online today, and we will see you on May the 11th.
And Darrell, I want to say thank you, Darrell, because you have done a great job in pulling this together. I mean, you've worked with a large committee and you have done an excellent job coordinating this. So thank you very much for doing that.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.